Ladies and gentlemen, let us all rise for the arrival of the Honorable Senate President and the Senators of the Republic of the Philippines.
The 34th session of the Senate and the first regular session of the 18th Congress is hereby called to order. Let us bow our heads for a minute of silent prayer. Father, Son, thank you. The Mugama Chi will lead us in the singing of the Philippine National Anthem, and the group will also render a song entitled Pagkakaisa Medley.
Partner. Hey. Fantastic, fantastic. Bravo, bravo. Brother? Pagalitan kaya din na tayo.
We're trying to help them practice, pero minadamit nila.
Bago? Bago? Updated?
The Secretary will please call the roll.
Roll call of members, the Honorable Senators Angara, Binay, Cayetano, De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon, Gatchalian, Go, Gordon, Ontiveros, Lacson, Lapid, Marcos, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Tolentino, Villanueva, Villar, Zubiri, Senate President Soto III.
With 17 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the Journal of the 33rd Session, Wednesday, November 6, 2019. Consider the same as approved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Chair hears none. The journal is approved.
Mr. President, we have several VIP guests in the gallery with us today. We have with us the Secretary of the Department of Finance, Secretary Carlos Dominguez, together with the Department of Budget and Management Secretary, Secretary Wendell Avisado, and we also have the men and women of the DOF and the DBM together with them, undersecretaries and ASECs. We also have with us members of the NEDA family, headed by Yusek Edilion. We also have with us members of the BIR family, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, and the Bureau of Treasury. There are several names, and to cut, to cut it short, all the men and women of these departments. And we have also with us, Mr. President, Zonta Club of Makati Ayala, headed by Ms. Nini Layug. She's with us, together with Zonta Club of Makati Environs, headed by Tita Marites Pineda. And of course, a member of that Zonta Club, kung sa Bisaya pa, walay pabor-pabor, is my mother-in-law. Ayan. The boss of my boss. Therefore, I must recognize her. Ma'am Detan, my Mommy Detan. And yes, I am Sip Sip. And we have also with us, yes, I'm the favorite son-in-law. Because I'm the only son-in-law. That is correct, to the minority floor leader. We also have with us Congresswoman Natasha Ko of the BHW party list and Mayor Richie David of Limay, Bataan. We also former Mayor Tommy Osmeña is here with us from the great city of Cebu. With that, Mr. President, before we take up other items on the agenda, especially the reference of business, let us, if with the permission of the body, if we take up third reading measures while we are complete, Mr. President. So I move that we vote on third reading, Senate Bill number 1076 under, yes, 1076. And I'd like to mention that copies were distributed to the members on November 7, complying with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration measure is in order.
We ask the Secretary to read the title and proceed with the roll call vote.
The Secretary will read the title of the measure and proceed with the roll call vote.
Senate Number 1076, an act establishing malasakit centers in all Department of Health, DOH hospitals in the country and in the Philippine General Hospital, PGH, providing funds therefor and for other purposes. Roll call vote. The Honorable Senators Angara, Binay, Cayetano, De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon, Gatchalian, Go, Gordon, Ontiveros, Lacson, Lapid, Marcos, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Tolentino, Villanueva, Villar, Zubiri, Senate President Soto III.
With 18 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention, Senate Bill 1076 is approved on third reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. May we recognize Senator Bongo for a few words, Mr. President?
Senator Bongo is recognized.
Malasakit Senator.
Mr. President, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all my colleagues for their support for this measure. Of course, we also thank the Senate President and the Majority Floor Leader. Of course, isa-isahin ko na lang, Senator Recto, Senator Drilon, Senator Pangilinan, Senator Po, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Villanueva, Senator Angara, Senator Binay, Senator Revilla, Senator Lacson, Senator Pimentel, Senator Villar, Senator Pia Cayetano, Senator Bato, Senator Tolentino, at lahat ng mga absent na sumuporta. Salamat sa inyo, including Senator Risa Ontiveros, si Senator Pacquiao, Senator Lito Lapid. Nandito siya kanina, wala? Wala. And si Senator Gordon, of course. Sa lahat, salamat sa inyo. Para naman ito sa tao. For pushing the immediate passage of this bill, the Malasakit Center is one of the solutions the Duterte government has developed to provide quick and quality access to healthcare to all Filipinos regardless of their age, sex, ethnic background, religion, and political affiliation. We laud this August chamber for making this a priority and one of the first legislations to be approved on the third reading in the 18th Congress. I would like to take this opportunity as well to thank the DOH, DSWD, PCSO, PhilHealth, DBM, and other government agencies for their cooperation and commitment to ensure the successful implementation of this measure. With the Malasakit Center Act in place to complement the Universal Healthcare Law, we are a step closer towards making quality healthcare more accessible and affordable for all Filipinos, especially the indigent and poor patients in need of medical assistance from the government. Pera niyo po ito, ibinabalik lang sa inyo sa pamamagitan ng mabilis, maayos at maasahang serbisyong medikal para sa lahat ng Pilipino. Thank you, Mr. President, and sa lahat, congratulations to all of us. Salamat po.
Thank you, Mr. President. Indeed, this measure of Senator Bongo is a landmark measure, and it's a legacy measure of the good neophyte senator, Mr. President. We congratulate him. Senator Rector would also like to explain his vote, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, Senator
Mr. President, for most of our countrymen, hospitalization is a luxury they cannot afford. The body may be willing, but the pocket is not.
The result is that 6 in 10 deaths in this country are unattended by a doctor. This should not surprise us at all because almost all families are one grave sickness away from bankruptcy. Financial ruin is a side effect of sickness. The reality is that while only one member of the family is in the sick bed, the entire family's finances end up in the ICU. Even those with insurance, public and private, soon realize that it will cover only a small portion of hospital bills. Often the balance to be paid is still so high that it has been proposed to put a recovery room beside the billing section of a hospital or a crash cart near the cashier. But better still, a malasakit center in, at the least, DOH-run public hospitals and the PGH. The latter must not only be centers of wellness, but of compassion as well. The creation of such is one step in helping our people raise the financial resources for their medical care, for the medical care of their loved ones. These are access points to financial help in a one-stop shop setup in hospitals themselves. As our national health accounts would show, funds which can be tapped by these centers would not totally displace the need for out-of-pocket medical expenses. Truth be told, they represent a mere fraction. But these gateways to assistance tell the people that government is here to help. In 2018, total national health spending was 799 billion. Of this, almost 450 billion was out-of-pocket expenditures of individuals. In all, government, including PhilHealth, accounted for 221.7 billion. This means that for every health peso spent, 59 centavos came from private pockets and 32 centavos came from the various instrumentalities of the government. Not captured by the National Health Account are contributions to the malasakit centers by PAGCOR and PCSO. Just the same, the malasakit concept is commendable for bringing this help to the people instead of the people chasing after them. Ito po ay parang ways na magtuturo kung paano makakamit ang tulong. Ang diferensya nga lang ay hindi ka napupunta pa sa kung saan kasi embedded na sa hospital. This is an ease in securing aid program that spares the caregivers of the agony of scouting for help, which today assumes the proportion of an urban expedition lasting many days in many government offices. At this point, I'd like to commend the sponsor of the measure for spearheading the passage of this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. No
Yes,
other member
Majority
wishes
Leader.
to explain their vote. So we move on to the next item, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we vote on third reading, Senate Bill number 1122. I so move. Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is approved.
We ask the Secretary to read the title and proceed with the roll call vote, Mr. President.
Secretary will proceed with the roll call vote after reading the title.
Senate Number 1122, an act designating the third Sunday of November every year as the National Day of Remembrance for road crash victims, survivors, and their families. Roll call vote, the Honorable Senators Angara, Binay, Cayetano, De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon, Gatchalian, Go, Gordon, Ontiveros, Lacson, Lapid, Marcos, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Tolentino, Villanueva, Villar, Zubiri, Senate President Soto III.
With 20 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention, Senate Bill 1122 is approved on third reading.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, in view of the fact that we have several government agencies here, particularly the DOF and NEDA and DBM, to listen to the sponsorship of the budget, with the permission of our colleagues who are in the period of interpellation, that we take up the sponsorship of the budget. But before that, we'd like to recognize other VIPs in the gallery. We have Secretary William Dar from the Department of Agriculture is with us today, Mr. President, together with the SEC Chair, Chairman Aquino, together with Ma'am Sandra Cam of the PCSO. So with that, Mr. President, I move that we transfer. Is the sponsor ready? Are you ready? Oh, before that, Mr. President, before we take up the measure, I forgot that Senator Grace Poe would like to explain her vote, as well as Senator Ralph Recto, on the last item that we approved on third reading on the day of the Remembrance Day for road crash victims. May we recognize the Honorable Lady Senator, Senator Grace, Madam Grace Poe.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Mr. President,
Senator
distinguished
Poe, yes.
colleagues, as chairperson of the Committee on Public Services, I would like to thank the support of everyone for this measure. The bill's approval today is only fitting as the world remembers this coming third Sunday of November the millions of lives lost or hurt in traffic accidents. With the institutionalization of this Remembrance Day, we hope that we get one step closer to serving justice. But aside from remembering, it is also our duty to proactively prevent such accidents. I would also like to take this opportunity to once again call for the passage of the bill creating the National Transport Safety Board as a response to the call for solutions to accidents in the country. Again, thank you to my colleagues, both present and not here today. Thank you.
The President Pro Tem, Senator Ralph Recto, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since the time we approved this bill on second reading last week, there have been 1,786 vehicular accidents in Metro Manila alone. Of these, 282 were injuries, and about 5 were fatalities. We extrapolated this from last year's data. It is safe to assume that the one for this year are even worse. If we use the PNP Highway Patrol Group's 2020 report, which is national in scope, there have been 26 deaths from road crashes since the afternoon of November when we approved this bill on second reading. However, the real body count, as with other road accident data, is far higher, as there are other deaths unreported to the HPG, or which the latter failed to record. After all, this is a land where traffic accidents like overspeeding fly under the radar. There is another thing missing. These are the taxpayers' funds no longer spent for road safety, which the original Motor Vehicle Users Charge law mandated. When we interred the Road Users Board in the graveyard of unlamented agencies, we also pulled the plug on the provision earmarking 7.5% of vehicle registration fee collections for road safety. I agree that there was much to be desired in the way the allocations were spent, but the idea of plowing back a fixed percentage of what car owners pay in registering their vehicles for projects designed to make our roads safe remains valid. Bad implementation of IDEA does not make it obsolete. In the same vein, that the existence of ninja cops is not an argument for the abolition of the entire police force. Mr. President, it is worth noting that MBUC collections stood at 46.25 billion as of late last year. For 2019, this will increase by 13.9 billion. I've earlier said that the law we passed merely abolished the road board, but did not abolish the duty of the government to declare where MVUC collections will be spent. And under the law, such itemization should be made in the NEP and eventually in the General Appropriations Act. Mukhang nakaligtaan po yata sa taong ito. Baka pwede sa susunod na taon, mayroon na. The utilization menu has also been changed, earmarking the collection solely for the construction, upgrading, repair, and rehabilitation of roads, bridges, and road drainage, a change I wholeheartedly agree to. If I can make a suggestion to the DPWH, perhaps they can use the MVUC to fund road works that will guarantee pedestrian safety near schools. Through widened roads, ample sidewalks, elevated walkways, marked pedestrian lanes, we can create a kid-safe zone around the schools and colleges where 25 billion people, or 1/4 of our population, go to daily. We need engineering interventions that will cocoon places where our children spend most of their day. We can still resurrect the MBUC from a fund that killed transparency to one that will save children's lives. Mr. President, I've raised the above proposals so that this bill, which we pass, will go beyond remembrances to one whose import is more meaningful, as it would create programs that will be enjoyed the whole year round instead of commemorating it for one day. Nagbabalak pa naman ang administrasyon na lakihan, doble or maaring triple ang bayad sa paparehistro ng sasakyan. Baka naman kaakibat ng panukalang ito ay may pakita muna nila kung saan gugugulin ang nakaimbak na mga koleksyon. At kung kasama ang mga proyektong ililigtas ang ating mga anak sa mga sakuna, maaari makamit nila ang kapahintulutan ng bayan. Maraming salamat, Ginoong Pangulo.
Thank you, Senator Recto. The Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, the permission of the body, I move that we transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders, House Bill number 4228 under Committee Report number 18. I so move.
Any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Consideration, the transfer is,
With that, Mr. President, I move to consider House Bill number 4228 under Committee Report number 18. I so move, Mr. President. And
any
ask the Secretary to
objection?
read the title of the measure.
Hearing none, the consideration of the measure is in order. The Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Bill number 4228, an act appropriating funds for the operation of the government of the Republic of the Philippines from January 1 to December 31, 2020, and for other purposes.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, with that, we'd like to recognize the distinguished gentleman from Aurora, the chairman of the Committee on Finance, no other than Senator Sonny Angara.
Senator Sani Angara is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Esteemed colleagues, Secretary Dominguez, Secretary Dar, members of the Cabinet, to our economic managers from various agencies, to our local government unit executives. It is an honor to sponsor what some say is the most important piece of legislation Congress is called to pass every year, the General Appropriations Act, or GAA, more commonly known as the Annual National Budget. The national budget does not only outline the Philippine government's planned operations and expenditures for the coming year. More than a collection of figures, percentages, and targets, it is a symbol of our collective priorities and values as a country and our dreams and aspirations for our people. Hindi lang po pondo, kundi pangarap ang nilalaman ng panukalang ito. During the earlier DBCC hearings, our Budget Secretary even used the mnemonic guide legacy to describe the 2020 expenditure program, saying that the initiatives to be funded will sustain our development momentum such that the present government will be able to leave a legacy of a more secure, more equitable, and more prosperous country. So critical is the GAA, in fact, that because we failed to pass it on time during the previous budget cycle, the country paid a price. One adverse impact was slower GDP growth in the first half of the year. Another was that the construction and repair of thousands of classrooms were delayed, as were the tuition fees of thousands of government scholars across the country. Opportunities were also lost to create, via government projects and programs, thousands of jobs in the construction, public administration, defense, wholesale and retail trade, land transport, and education sectors. Of course, the executive has since responded well, and we are in the midst of implementing a catch-up plan. Recently, we received the good news that economic growth has returned to its former clip for the third quarter of the year at 6.2%, besting even the forecasts of some of the experts. Nevertheless, Mr. President, this experience has underscored that for us to maintain our country's momentum and upward trajectory, we can afford no more delays, especially when public spending can account for up to 20% of the entire economy. And that's why your Finance Committee has worked to deliver the President's budget on time, dividing the task of hearing it between this representation and our 9 vice chairpersons. Malalim po ang ating pasasalamat kila Senator Cayetano, Gatchalian, Go, Gordon, Ontiveros, Lacson, Marcos, Villanueva, and Villar. Sa tulong po nila, nasuri ng masinsinan ang budget ng mga ahensya marahil sa mas mabilis na panahon. We also thank the Senate staff, even the staff of our colleagues, who, particularly the hardworking men and women of the Legislative Budget Research and Monitoring Office, led by Executive Director Doblon, who has put off retirement in the meantime. Maraming salamat po. Ginoong Presidente, aabot po sa 4.1 trillion ang nilalaman ng committee report. Baka naging 5.1 trillion pa po ito kung tinanggap ng inyong committee ang lahat ng requests at amendments. Napapaloob po dito ang 1.25 trillion na automatic appropriations at 3.066 trillion in new appropriations. Out of this amount, 15.4% will be devoted to expenditures related to operating and improving our communications, roads, and other forms of transportation, 17.3% for education, culture, and manpower development, 9% for social security and welfare, 4.8% for domestic security, and 7.4% on public order and safety. Ipapagpatuloy po natin ang mga pangunahing proyekto ng ating administrasyon tulad ng CCT at ng UCT or Unconditional Cash Transfer, ang block grant para sa BARM, ang AFP Modernization Program, at base sa budget na ito, lalapit sa 5% ng Gross Domestic Product o GDP ang paggastos po natin para sa infrastruktura. We believe that this budget will help bring us closer to becoming an upper middle income country by 2022, where human development is high and growth is more inclusive, as manifested in lower poverty incidence in rural areas and a lower unemployment rate. Sa mga halagang ito, pakay po natin ipagpatuloy ang proseso para abutin ang pagbabago sa ating lipunan, kung saan titibay ang tiwala ng taong bayan sa gobyerno, panatag ang kanilang loob na ligtas ang kanilang buhay, at lalawak ang pagkakataon po nila para umasenso, Mr. President. Alinsunod sa mandato ng saligang batas na dapat pinakaprioridad ng budget ng bansa ang edukasyon ng mamamayang Pilipino, pinalaki po ng inyong komite ang pondong mapupunta sa Department of Education, Commission on Higher Education, at Technical Education and Skills Development Authority. Sa rekomendasyon ni Vice Chair Pia Cayetano at Senate President Pro Tempore Recto, tinaas po natin ang pondo ng Department of Education. Ito ay para madagdagan ang pwedeng maisama sa programa para sa private senior high school vouchers, para palawigin ang Last Mile Schools program kung saan magtatayo o pagagandahin ang mga eskwelahan sa matatarik na bundok, liblib na isla at mga malalayong lugar na mahirap puntahan. Para din pong ayusin at preserbahin ang mga tinatawag na Gabaldon Schools na bahagi ng ating kultura at kasaysayan o heritage, alinsunod sa Republic Act 11194 na pinasa natin kamakailan lamang, Mr. President. Sinusuportahan din ng inyong komite ang Quick Response Fund o QRF ng DepEd bilang pagtugon sa mga sakuna tulad ng mga lindol sa Mindanao itong nakaraang buwan. Tinataya na maaring umabot sa 2 bilyong piso ang halagang kailangan para sa repair, reconstruction at rehabilitation ng halos 837 na paaralan na apektuhan sa matinding pagyanig sa Mindanao. Kung pagsamahin ang parte ng QRF ng DepEd na hindi pa nagagamit sa ngayong taong 2019 of around 679 million pesos at ang matatanggap nilang QRF sa 2020 of around 2 billion pesos, sapat po ang pondo ng DepEd para maayos ang mga nasalantang paaralan sa North Cotabato, Davao del Sur at ibang bahagi po ng Mindanao. Ang mahalaga ay maaprubahan po ang panukala na pahabain o i-extend ang validity ng 2019 budget na ating inihain noong nakaraang linggo. Inaantay na lang po ang pagpasa ng House of Representatives dito at ma-sponsor natin ito kagad. On top of this, Mr. President, we've appropriated a portion of the NDREAM Fund to be used solely for relief, repair, and rehabilitation of Regions 11 and 12, which were hit hard by the October earthquakes. Mr. President, tinaas din po natin ang pondo para sa mga scholarship at tulong pinansyal ng Commission on Higher Education, CHED, tulad ng Student Financial Assistance Program o STUFAP, again through the initiatives of Vice Chair Cayetano and Senate President Pro Tempore Recto, at ang pag-implementa ng Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education or UACTEA Law. Nakasama po ang karamihan dito sa mga may akda ng batas. At ng Private Education Students Financial Assistance o PESFA. Sa pamagitan ng mga scholarship at financial assistance, nakakapag-aral ang mga tulad ni Mrs. Beth Rosales, isang 33-year-old na may grade 5 na anak. Dahil sa free college tuition, siya po ay third-year college student for Bachelor in Technical Teachers Education sa Zamboanga City State Polytechnic College. Sa Pilipinas, napangarap natin lahat po nakakapag-aral, pati ang mga nanay na nakapaghabol ng kanilang pangarap magtapos. Naglaan din po tayo ng pondo para magkaroon ng cash grants for medical students bilang tuition fee subsidy para sa ating mga medical student sa state universities and colleges at sa mga may Doctor of Medicine program. Sa usaping TESDA, pinondohan din po natin ang Tulong Trabaho Fund alinsunod sa Tulong Trabaho Act o Republic Act 11230 ni Labor Chair at Finance Vice Chairperson Joel Villanueva. Ito ay pangangasiwaan ng TESDA para mas marami ang makakuha ng mga Tech Voc Education and Training or TVET courses at bibigyan ng prioridad ang mga taong walang trabaho, hindi nag-aaral o hindi nagte-training. Alam po natin, Mr. President, na dandaan at libo-libo ang nagtagumpay sa tulong ng TESDA. Ang pinakamatingkad na ehemplo nito ay walang iba kundi ang ating seatmate na si Senator Villanueva. Dahil sa TESDA, hindi lang siya naging barista o espesyalista sa kape, naging senador pa po. Tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang ayudang pinaaabot ng gobyerno para sa mga kababayan natin na nahihirapan. Sa pagsusulong ni Vice Chairperson Senator Bongo, sinisigurado natin na patuloy na may malasakit ang gobyerno, lalo na sa mga may sakit. Halimbawa, sinigurado natin na may pondong nakalaan sa Department of Health or DOH bilang assistance to indigent patients. Pwedeng bigyan ng tulong pinansyal ang mga mahihirap na pasyente sa 430 government hospitals, 67 na DOH run, 17 sa ilalim ng AFP and PNP, 3 na pinapatakbo ng mga SUC at 341 na LGU or local government owned, unit owned. Kasama po dito ang PGH or Philippine General Hospital, NKTI or National Kidney Transplant Institute, Philippine Heart Center, Philippine Children's Hospital, Lung Center of the Philippines at East Avenue Medical Center. Sa magitan naman po ng isang special provision, pwedeng bigyan ng assistance ang mga mahihirap na pasyente sa mga pribadong ospital ng medical and health services kung hindi kaya ng mga government hospitals na tugunan ang pangangailangan ng mga pasyente. Ang mahalaga lang ay mayroong karapatang Memorandum of Agreement ang private hospitals at mga regional offices ng Department of Health. Nilalagyan rin po natin ng sapat ng pondo ang Human Resource for Health or HRH Deployment Program ng ahensya para patuloy pa rin makapagserbisyo ang mga doktor, nurse at midwife sa mga government hospitals natin. Popondahan din po natin ang pagkaroon ng isang mental health hotline bilang pandagdag sa ibang programa alinsunod sa mental health law na ang principal author ay no less than the Senate President, Senate President Tito Soto at isinulong ni Vice Chair Ontiveros nung nakaraang Kongreso. Ito'y tugon sa sinasabi ni Dr. Cornelio Banaag Jr., ang Professor Emeritus ng UP College of Medicine at ang tinataguriang Father of Philippine Child Psychiatry na ayon sa kanya may umuusbong na mental health crisis sa mga batang Pilipino. Sa ilalim naman po ng budget ng DSWD, mananatili ang Pamilyang Pilipino Pantawid Program o 4Ps alinsunod sa bagong 4Ps law na nagtatalaga at nagpapatatag sa programang ito. Milyong-milyong pamilya na rin ang natulungan. Nararapat lamang po na ipagpatuloy ito. Sa pagsusulong po ni Vice Chairperson Senator Amy Marcos, paiigtingin rin natin ang supplementary feeding program alinsunod sa advokasya niya at ni Senadora Grace po para masigurado na nakakakain ng tama at masustansya ang mga batang undernourished na 0 to 4 years old at hindi nakapag-enroll sa kindergarten. We've also augmented the funding for the Philippine General Hospital for the purchase of medical supplies and equipment like 2D echo diagrams and mechanical ventilators and the provision of medical services. Again, an initiative of Vice Chair Pia Cayetano. Dinagdagan din po natin ang makukuha ng DOLE para sa mga programa nito na tumutulong sa ating mga kababayan na nahihirapan makahanap ng trabaho o hanap buhay. And we've also added to the Emergency Repatriation Fund and Welfare Assistance Fund of the OWA, or the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, so that more of our OFWs will be protected even beyond Philippine borders, upon the recommendation of Vice Chair Senator Joel Villanueva. Through the initiative of Vice Chairperson Senator Richard Gordon, we also work to strengthen our presence around the globe so that assistance is available to all Filipinos, particularly for those who've chosen to earn their living abroad. This is why we provided additional funds to the Department of Foreign Affairs, particularly the Office of the Secretary, not only for the continued operations of existing foreign service posts and consular offices, but also the opening of new posts and missions abroad. We do this not only to serve our brothers and sisters living and working abroad, but also to maintain a solid presence in an increasingly interconnected world, Mr. President. We will provide funding for 6 foreign service posts, which we will open this year: Philippine embassies in Stockholm, Rabat, Morocco, Philippine Consulate Generals in Barcelona, Spain, Nagoya, Japan, Melbourne, Australia, and Istanbul, Turkey, as well as funding for new posts in Colombo, Sri Lanka, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and Astana, Kazakhstan. The 2020 budget we are proposing will also complement the work done by our hardworking chair of the Committee on Justice, Senator Richard Gordon, who has done so many investigations and proposed necessary policy changes that will make justice real to our people. Hence, we've increased budgets that correspond to the different pillars of justice: the courts, prosecution, law enforcement, and corrections. We've increased the judiciary's budget to be utilized primarily for creating new positions in the Supreme Court and the lower courts, for the repair and maintenance of halls of justice nationwide, for hiring the services of the courts' decongestion officers, or professionals who help clear dockets of backlog, for the hazard pay of judges in lower courts, and for the creation of 50 new judges at large positions, 30 regional trial courts, and 20 municipal trial courts. And this is according to the newly passed Judges at Large Act, Republic Act 11459, which Senator Gordon sponsored in the last Congress. We've also augmented the funds for the Sandigan Bayan to help them construct their office building, conduct general repairs and maintenance of their facilities. Same applies for the operational expenses of the Court of Appeals, the Court of Tax Appeals, as well as the Office of the Ombudsman. For law enforcement, we've realigned funds within the Philippine National Police to allow them to properly implement EO number 70, series of 2019, which calls for a whole-of-nation approach to restoring peace and order in the countryside, meaning not just a greater police presence, but also greater engagement with our communities. We've also amended a special provision in the budget of the DILG, Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, or BJMP, to make available funds for drugs and medicines of up to 182,000 assumed prisoners for their laboratory and diagnostic tests. This aligns closely with the goal of ensuring that every Filipino, regardless of their circumstances, has access to free checkups and lab tests. Mahalaga din ang seguridad para maabot ng Pilipinas ang kanyang mga pangarap. Kaya dinagdagan din ng inyong komite sa pagsusulong po ni Defense Committee Chair at Finance Committee Vice Chair Senator Ping Lacson ang pondo ng Department of National Defense at mga kaakibat na ahensya na mahalaga sa kaligtasan, kapayapaan at katatagan ng ating lipunan. Halimbawa, dinagdagan ang pondo ng Philippine Army upang makapag-activate sila ng isang buong infantry division para depensahan ang bansa, partikular sa Basulta o ang Basilan, Sulu, Tawi-Tawi area mula sa banta ng Abu Sayyaf Group at ibang terrorist elements. Kamakailan lang po, Mr. President, lumabas ang balita na may napatay na 3 suspected suicide bombers, 2 taga-Egypt at 1 Pilipino sa enkwentro sa isang checkpoint sa Holo, Cebu. May nakuhang mga bomb vests at grenades mula sa mga suspects. Mr. President, such developments only demonstrate how the threat of terrorism is very real and how it is imperative that we support our armed forces in fighting this threat. Makakakuha naman ang Philippine Air Force ng karagdagang pondo para pagandahin ang Rabina Air Base sa Camp O'Donnell, Tarlac. Ang airbase na ito ay nagsisilbing training facility for aerial combat. Tinaas din ang pondo ng AFP General Headquarters hindi lamang para makapagtayo ng bagong library at lecture hall sa Philippine Military Academy, kundi para umigting ang suporta ng sandatahang lakas para panatilihin ang kapayapaan sa kanayunan. Makakatanggap din ng karagdagang suporta ang DND OSEC para patakbuhin ang Task Force Balik Loob at ang Enhanced Comprehensive Local Integration or ECLIP program na naghihikayat sa mga rebelde na magbalik loob sa Republika ng Pilipinas. All of the aforementioned defense enhancements were initiatives of Senator Ping Lacson. Clearly, the solution we're pursuing is not purely military. We seek a holistic approach kung saan para maibalik ang kaayusan at kapayapaan sa kanayunan. Mahalagang bigyan muli ng pag-asa ang ating mga kababayan, silang mga naglunsad ng armadong kilusan dahil sa kawalan ng katarungan na nakita't naranasan nila. Naniniwala po tayo na kapag binuksan muli ang pagkakataon para sila'y mangarap at umasa sa magandang buhay, magbabago ang kanilang pananaw at kusa nilang ibababa ang kanilang mga armas. Under the protective mantle provided by our uniformed personnel, we believe it would be easier for the country to achieve global competitiveness, attract foreign investment, and realize its aspirations of prosperity. But our economic growth and productivity continues to be hampered by congestion, not only in our road systems, but also in the digital networks that connect people and facilitate commerce and trade. Which is why we've also trained our focuses on the funds of the DOTR, the MMDA, and the DICT. For instance, under the DOTR, shepherded by Senator Win Gatchalian, there is a significant amount appropriated for the North-South Commuter Railway System project, envisioned to span from Clark to Calamba. And to help decongest Metro Manila of road traffic, there are more funds lodged in the MMDA for the Pasig River Ferry System, particularly for improving the ferry stations, maintaining existing boats, and procuring 4 new 50-seater air-conditioned ferries. Any means which would help decongest the daily gridlock and punishment of the 500,000 car a day traffic on EDSA should be supported. And considering that the world, Mr. President, is becoming more and more wired and interconnected, again through the initiative of Vice Chair Senator Ping Lacson, the committee opted to provide more funds to the DICT, led by our former colleague, now Secretary Honasan, for its plans, which include building digital classrooms, workforce, workplace, and communities, deploying a government emergency communication system, or GECS, turning our government onto the digital revolution and setting up a national government portal, implementing the National Broadband Plan, and connecting more free Wi-Fi internet access in public spaces and SUCs, pursuant to the Free Wi-Fi Law or Republic Act 10929. Siyempre, hindi rin po tunay na maaabot ang mga pangarap natin para sa bansa kung hindi po umuunlad ang kanayunan, partikular ang sektor ng agrikultura. Yan po ang idinidiin ng ating Vice Chair Senator Cynthia Villar, na siyang chairperson din ng Senate Committees on Agriculture, Agrarian Reform, at Environment and Natural Resources. Sa kanyang inisyatibo, dinagdagan po natin ang pondo ng DAR para sa land acquisition and distribution para mas maraming beneficiaries ang maaaring makinabang at mabigyan ng sarili nilang lupa. Nagsagawa rin po tayo ng mga realignments sa budget ng DA para masigurado na tunay na makikinabang ang mga magsasaka, mangingisda at iba pang mga manggagawa sa bukid at dagat. Nilagyan ng special provision kung saan nakasaad na dapat lahat ng pondong na pupunta sa research and development sa ilalim po ng DA ay may farm-level application at tunay nakakatulong para mas maging profitable ang pagsasaka at pangingisda. Wala rin pong saysay ang ating mga galaw kung hindi natin alagaan at protektahan ang ating kalikasan, lalo na't palaki ng palaki ang banta ng climate change sa kasaganaan at kaunlaran ng ating bansa. Kaya sinigurado natin na may sapat na pondo ang mga ahensyang may kinalaman dito. May mga realignments na ginawa para makapag-procure ang EMB ng DNR ng mga plastic recycling machineries at composite machineries na makatulong sa issue hinggil sa plastic waste. It is no secret, Mr. President, that the Philippines has been identified as a top source of plastic waste found in our oceans, which is unfortunate since our waters have also been identified as a center of the world's biodiversity. It's no secret also that my predecessor in the committee, Senator Legarda, was a staunch advocate for the environment. It is with her in mind that we are ensuring that ample funding has been provided to the DNR, particularly for its programs on protected areas, caves and wetland development and management, on coastal and marine ecosystems rehabilitation, as well as for the Climate Change Commission. Mr. President, it's also high time that we more actively broadcast to the world what we Filipinos are capable of producing, that in fact we're ready to make more and better products, we are ready to link up with global value chains, and contribute new and transformative innovations. Hence, the 2020 budget reflects our aspirations of building and promoting across the globe a solid Philippine brand, or Tatak Pinoy, so to speak. During our hearings with the Department of Trade and Industry, we heard about the many ways Filipino products like cacao, coffee, furniture, and fashion are already making waves, not only in international trade fairs, but also in competitions. This is why we've decided to support the plans of CITEM, or the Center for International Trade Expositions and Missions, to showcase more of our products abroad and to increase the number of Philippine booths and exhibitions in international fairs and conventions, thus ensuring wider access to bigger markets for our producers. We've also consulted the DTI on the possible creation of more trade attaché posts across the world. While such discussions are ongoing, we've opted to increase the funding for its Breakout Economy initiative, which is aimed at enabling our existing trade attachés to expand their promotional activities in priority markets in East Asia. This will be done with the end goal of narrowing our trade deficit with partner countries and encouraging more investments and generating jobs. We envision that such promotional activities will follow in the footsteps of my predecessor, now Deputy Speaker Lauren Legarda, when she supported the return of the Philippines to the Venice Biennale, the world's biggest art fair, some 4 to 5 years ago. In the sense that her efforts helped put our country on the radar of the art world, we want to do the same for the full gamut of Tatak Pinoy products, services, and talents across the globe, whether we speak of Philippine design, Philippine chocolate, Philippine book writing, Philippine authors, Philippine publishing, among others. Filipinos are known to be a creative and resourceful people, endowed with a rich heritage and colorful culture. Leveraging on that is one aim of our Tatak Pinoy initiatives. It is also why the committee fully supported Vice Chairs Cayetano and Hontiveros' efforts to provide added funding for agencies dealing with our creatives and our cultural agencies, such as the Film Development Council of the Philippines, the NCCA, or National Commission for Culture and the Arts, the Cultural Center, the National Historical Center of the Philippines, the National Museum, and the Komisyon ng Wikang Pilipino. Of course, Mr. President, promotions alone do not build a strong Philippine brand. That's why we have put more funding into initiatives that enhance our productive capabilities here at home. These include establishing more negosyo centers across the country, enhancing the DTI's One Town, One Product, or OTOP Next Gen program, and placing more shared service facilities in our communities. We all know that our people are creative and hardworking, but sometimes they lack just a little bit of entrepreneurial know-how, or some market access, or even equipment or technology. These are the small gaps that we want to help the DTI in filling. Take, for instance, the Shared Service Facilities, or SSF's program. Through the program, an entrepreneur can save on their production costs because they have ready access to some piece of equipment, machinery, tool, or technology that would help them produce their products. One example of a beneficiary was the San Fabian Pangasinan Council of Women, PCWI, multipurpose cooperative based in San Fabian, Pangasinan. They were provided with one stainless steel preparation table, an upright type freezer grinder, and a vacuum packaging machine pressure cooker. With such endowment, the council was able to properly package and store boneless bangus and bangus sardines. In its first year of production, they were awarded the best OTOP, or One Town, One Product prize in Pangasinan and in Region 1 a few years ago. This is but one example, Mr. President, of what one SSF, or Shared Service Facility, can do. As of August 31, 2019, over 2,000 SSFs have been established around the country, benefiting hundreds of thousands of individuals and generating thousands of jobs. We wish to support more of such Tatak Pinoy enhancing facilities in the 2020 budget. There is also the challenge, Mr. President, of finding markets for Tatak Pinoy products and services. Considering that public spending can account for up to 20% of the economy, we thought that government should be at the forefront of patronizing our very own. Hence, we introduced wording in next year's budget stating that in the procurement of goods and infrastructure projects, the government and any of its instrumentalities shall give preference to materials and supplies made and manufactured in the Philippines. And since we are talking about competitiveness, in recent years, our rankings have increased. But to increase our competitiveness even further, it's best to implement fully the ease of doing business law, the brainchild and baby of our majority floor leader, Senator Mig Zubiri. With this in mind, we have augmented the funds of the Anti-Red Tape Authority, or ARTA, upon his initiative. And if we are to provide a truly attractive value proposition to the world's investors, we need to start investing heavily in innovation. We need to build up our know-how not only in R&D or research and development, but also in bringing new technological findings as quickly as we can to the market. This is why your committee has chosen to increase funding at the DTI's initiatives towards spurring innovation in our industries, and including several regional inclusive innovation clusters, or RIICs, where government, the private sector, and the academe regularly meet to discuss ways on how they can collaborate and innovate. We need to unleash the forces of innovation in every region of the country, in our state universities and colleges, in our businesses, and in our government offices. Ayusin rin po natin ang Research Institute for Tropical Medicine, Remedicine, or RITM, para lalong lumalim ang pagsaliksik po natin tungkol sa iba't ibang sakit at karamdaman at mapoprotektahan po natin ang ating mga kababayan. Towards this end, we've also provided seed money for the establishment of the Innovation Fund under NEDA, as mandated by the Innovation Act, Republic Act 11293, pushed by our Vice Chair, Senator Win Gatchalian, who was then Chair of the Committee on Economic Affairs. We've also augmented the funds of the DOST for its community empowerment through science and technology program, as well as set aside research grants to be distributed across our state universities colleges and the UP system upon the initiative of Senator Joel Villanueva, who happens to be the chair of the Higher Education Committee. Makikita, Mr. President, na napapaloob sa panukalang ito ang mga prioridad, pinahahalagahan at pangarap natin bilang mga Pilipino. Mababatid sana dito na kaakibat ng katuparan ng ating mga pangarap ay ang agarang pagtugon sa mga pagsubok na kinakaharap natin bilang isang bansa. Nararapat lamang na suriin at pag-usapan natin ito ng masinsinan, nararapat lamang na siguraduhin natin na malaya ito sa anumang katiwalian o pagsasayang. Nararapat din na sa darating mga araw, huwag po nating kalimutan, nakaangkla din ang ating kaunlaran at kasaganaan bilang isang bansa. Again, we would like to thank our colleagues in this august chamber, Mr. President, particularly the Senate leadership, Senate President Pro Temp Ralph Recto, Majority Leader Mig Zubiri, Minority Floor Leader Frank Drilon, the 9 vice chairpersons of the Committee on Finance, Senators Cayetano, Gatchalian, Go, Gordon, Hontiveros, Lacson, Marcos, Villanueva, and Villar, and all the other senators, all of whom regularly attended and participated in the committee's hearings towards the end of a better budget. As we continue our debates and dialogues in the august halls of the Senate plenary, your committee again extends its thanks and requests your support for the timely passage of the 2020 budget. Thank you, God bless, and mabuhay.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I believe our vice chairman would also want to give sponsorship speeches, but they are willing, well, Senator Joel particularly, and the other vice chairman will just submit it to the secretariat to be placed on record, Mr. President.
We shall place it on record. The
you.
Minority Leader is
Minority Leader.
recognized. Senator Drilon.
Point of parliamentary inquiry, Mr. President, addressed to the Majority Leader.
Yes.
The Majority Leader just mentioned that the Vice Chairman may also wish to deliver sponsorship speeches. May we know, Mr. President, if traditionally, when the Chair delivers the sponsorship speech on the budget, we interpolate on the general principles. That's what we have been following since time immemorial. With that statement of the Majority Leader, may we know, Mr. President, if the Vice Chairman will now sponsor the departments whose budget are assigned to them?
No, Mr. President. I believe this is a general sponsorship of the General Appropriations Act. Tomorrow, we start at 10 a.m., where in your chairman of the Committee on Finance, Senator Angara, we can open the discussions and the debates on the general principles.
Okay, so the vice chairs are not expected to deliver co-sponsorship speech on the budget tomorrow.
No more, sir.
Okay, and I assume their sponsorship speech for the individual budgets will come when the budgets of these departments will be called on the floor. Is that a correct assumption, sir?
Yes. Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
All right. Majority Leader.
Thank you. Just a reminder to our colleagues, I have not had the list of those who would like to interpret. Maybe tomorrow, 10 o'clock? 10 o'clock. Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We'd like to also give... Huh? Yes, those who wish to interpolate, please make your reservations to the Secretariat because I still have an incomplete list. Hopefully, Mr. President, those who are vice chairmen may not anymore interpolate. The vice chair. Because we have a very unique situation where we have the largest number of vice chairmen. I believe this is the first time we have 10 vice chairmen, which is half the membership of the Senate. So, but of course, that's just a wish. But anybody is open to ask questions, Mr. President.
Yes, but most probably this will be on the basic principles.
Yes.
Even the Vice Chairman may
Yes.
interpolate on the basic principles.
Yes, Mr. President. That's
Yes.
tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
All right.
With that, Mr. President, we suspend consideration of House Bill number 4228.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration measures suspended.
Mr. President, I move for the reference of business.
The Secretary will proceed with the reference of business.
Reference of business, message from the House of Representatives. Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 5 November 2019, it designated Representatives Ferrer, Barzaga Jr., Rodriguez, Ortega, Fortun, and Kimbo as conferees of the Bicameral Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 4933 and Senate Number 1043, both entitled An Act Postponing the May 2020 Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan Elections, amending for the purpose Republic Act Number 9164 as amended by Republic Act Number 9340, Republic Act Number 10632, Republic Act Number 10656, Republic Act Number 10923, and Republic Act Number 10952, and for other purposes.
Referred to the Committee on Rules.
Bill on first reading, Senate number 1154, entitled An Act Mandating the Integration of the National Building Code of the Philippines and the Republic Act number 6541, entitled An Act to Ordain and Institute a National Building Code of the Philippines as a major subject in the curriculum of the Bachelor of Science degree programs in Civil Engineering, Mechanical Engineering, Electrical Engineering, Sanitary Engineering, Electronics Engineering, and Architecture, and its inclusion as a topic in the licensure examinations for these professions, introduced by Senator Lapid.
Referred to the Committees on Higher Education and Civil Service.
Communications, letters from the Office of the President of the Philippines transmitting to the Senate 2 original copies of the following Republic Acts, which were signed by President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Republic Act number 11451, entitled An Act Establishing a District Branch of the Land Transportation Office, the Municipality of Maramag, Province of Bukidnon, and appropriating funds therefore. Republic Act number 11452, an Act converting the Land Transportation Office Extension Office located in Municipality of Rosales, Province of Pangasinan, into a regular LTO District Office and appropriating funds therefore. Republic Act number 11460, an Act amending Republic Act number 10807, or an Act declaring a working holiday and no class day in schools in the city of Parañaque, Metro Manila, in commemoration of its Foundation Day anniversary. And Republic Act number 11461, an Act declaring November 26th of every year a special working holiday in the city of Dasmariñas, Province of Cavite, and all its barangays to be known as the Foundation Day of the city of Dasmariñas.
To the archives.
Letters from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas transmitting to the Senate copies of the following certified and authenticated BSP issuances in compliance with Section 15A of Republic Act number 7653, the new Central Bank Act. Circular letters number CL 2019-068, 069, and 070, dated 24 September 2019. Circular numbers 1051 and 1057, dated 27 September and 28 October 2019, and memorandum numbers M 2019-023 and 024, dated 25 and 24 September 2019.
To the Committee on Banks.
Committee reports. Committee report number 19, prepared and submitted by the Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs on Senate number 1155, with Senators Recto, Zubiri, and De La Rosa as authors thereof, entitled An Act Fixing the Validity Period of the License to Own and Possess, Permit to Carry Outside of Residence or Place of Business, and Registration of Firearms, amending for the purpose Section 7 and 19 of Republic Act number 10591, otherwise known as the Comprehensive Firearms and Ammunition Regulation Act, recommending its approval in substitution of Senate numbers 275 and 1023, sponsor Senator De La Rosa.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 20, prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Economic Affairs and Finance on Senate number 1156, with Senators Pangilinan, Gatchalian, and Marcos as authors thereof, entitled An Act Promoting Foreign Investments, amending thereby Republic Act number 7042, otherwise known as the Foreign Investments Act of 1991 as amended, and for other purposes, recommending its approval in substitution of Senate numbers 418, 919, and 1024, taking into consideration House number 300, sponsor Senator Marcos.
To the calendar for ordinary business. We have additional reference business.
Resolutions. PS Resolution number 211, titled Resolution Expressing the Sense of the Senate in Recognizing the Strong and Robust Amity and Cooperation between the Republic of the Philippines and the Republic of Singapore, and commemorating the 50th anniversary of our diplomatic relations, introduced by Senator Gatchalian.
To the Committee on Rules.
PS Resolution number 212, Resolution expressing the profound sympathy and sincere condolences of the Senate of the Philippines on the death of John Cocongway Jr., introduced by Senator Drilon.
To the Committee on Rules.
PS Resolution number 213, resolution urging the Executive Department not to pursue the planned liberalization of sugar industry with the end in view of safeguarding the welfare of sugar farmers and industry workers in more than 20 provinces in the country, introduced by Senators Zubiri, Villar, Angara, Binay, Gatchalian, Gordon, Pimentel III, Villanueva, Soto III, Recto, Drilon, Cayetano, De La Rosa, Go, Ontiveros, Lacson, Marcos, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Poe, Revilla Jr., and Tolentino.
To the calendar for ordinary business. There is second additional.
Committee on Rules muna.
One more?
212. Ano?
213?
Yeah.
This is 213? To the Committee on Rules.
Okay.
And then the next one, the committee report.
May committee report. Committee report. Committee report number 21, prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Public Services, Constitutional Amendments, and Revision of Codes on Senate number 1157 with Senators Tolentino, Poe, Recto, and Revilla Jr. as authors thereof, entitled An Act Creating the Office of the Mobility Czar to coordinate urgent related measures necessary and proper to effectively address the transport and traffic crisis and for other purposes, recommending its approval and substitution of Senate number 213, taking into consideration PS Resolution numbers 55, 81, and 133, sponsor Senator Poe.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
Second additional reference of business.
Yes.
Resolution, PS Resolution number 214, entitled Resolution Expressing the Sense of the Senate in Recognizing and in the Enduring Friendship between the Republic of the Philippines and Republic of Singapore, introduced by Senator Binay.
To the Committee on Rules. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we have three resolutions that we'd like to approve with the permission of the body, Mr. President. With permission of the body, that I move to consider proposed Senate Resolution number 213. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration is in order.
May we ask the Secretary to read the title?
The Secretary will read the title of the measure without prejudice to inserting into the records the text of the said resolution.
Resolution urging the Executive Department not to pursue the planned liberalization of the sugar industry with the end in view of safeguarding the welfare of sugar farmers and industry workers in more than 20 provinces in the country.
Thank you, Mr. President. To sponsor the measure, Mr. President, if I may, it is signed by, if I may, Mr. President, to sponsor the measure, really
Yes,
quickly.
the Majority
Just for
Leader.
2 minutes.
Yes.
It's also good timing that the good Secretary of Agriculture is here with us, Secretary Dar. You know, Mr. President, if there's any one secretary that really could bring the golden age of agriculture, it's our dear Secretary Dar, William Dar, who came from the academe, and he has actually served another country very well, which is India. He was in India there in his capacity as head of an agency and was able to help the grains industry of India. So if there's one person who can help our industries, our agriculture industry, it is the good secretary. Although, while he's at the helm, there are still efforts from other sectors to liberalize importations as well of sugar, which for me, Mr. President, will be the death nail of the nail that will seal the coffin of the sugar industry in the country. Mr. President, there are 20 provinces in the country that are affected, that would be affected by this, from Cagayan Valley all the way down to Davao del Sur, Bukidnon included, and even Negros Occidental. By the way, Bukidnon is the largest, second largest producer of sugar next to Negros Occidental. So, Mr. President, we're looking at a total of 1 million people, both directly and indirectly affected, and not to mention, Mr. President, about with families included, about 5 million people that would be affected by this. We do not want to happen what had happened to other agricultural industries. Right now, rice is having a very difficult time, and because of the African swine flu, which is no fault of the Secretary, that was a worldwide phenomenon now, it is wreaking havoc to the swine industry, and the hog raisers are crying because they're losing their pants due to this particular disease. And we do not want another industry to fall and falter because of importation or liberal importation of these products, Mr. President. The face of the sugar farmer now are no longer the hacienderos or the mga mestizos that you see in movies na kinakaaway ni FPJ. Wala na po yun. Ang muka ng sugar farmers ay agrarian reform beneficiaries. From Batangas to Tarlac to Pampanga to Negros, they're already almost all are agrarian reform beneficiaries. The average land holdings of sugar farmers, as a matter of fact, the national average land holding is less than a hectare, about 9,000 square meters. Ganong kadami po ang mga beneficiaries na nabigyan ng lupa na nakatatanim po ng asukal or kalamay. Kaya, Mr. President, this resolution is a reminder to government that we still have to support the industry through SIDA, the Sugar Industry Development Act, wherein Senator Villar is a principal author together with Senator J.V. Ercito, wherein we are supposed to develop our sugar industry and make it robust before we actually come up with a situation such as liberalizing our imports. So let us fully implement SIDA, Mr. President. Let us fully implement the support of the industry before we can talk about liberalized importation. And let us be competitive. But right now is not the time, Mr. President, to liberalize our importations. So with that, Mr. President, I hope that our colleagues, with the support of 22, I'd like to put on record, every member signed this resolution, myself, Senator Villar, Senator Angara, Senator Binay, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Gordon, Senator Pimentel, Senator Joel Villanueva, the Senate President, Senator President Tito Soto, Senator Ralph Recto, Senator Drilon, Senator Pia Cayetano, Senator Bato de la Rosa, Senator Bongo, Senator Risa Ontiveros, Senator Panfilo Lacson, Senator Amy Marcos, Senator Pacquiao, Senator Kiko Pangilinan, Senator Bong Revilla, Senator Grace Poe, Senator Francis Tol Tolentino, and Senator Manuel Lito Lapid had mentioned that he wants to be a sponsor of this measure. Unfortunately, he is just an official business abroad, and Senator De Lima, unfortunately, also is unavailable at the moment. So, Mr. President, that is the majority of our members of this chamber, and we thank them. The sugar industry, the sugar farmers, want to thank them from the bottom of their hearts for the support given to our sugar farmers. With that, Mr. President, there are no other members who want to sponsor the measure. We move to close the period of sponsorship, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none,
Mr. President,
closed.
no member wishes to interpolate the measure as well as provide any amendments, including committee amendments. Mr. President, I move that we close the period of interpolation and amendments.
Hearing no objection, so closed.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 213. Subject
Any
to style.
objection? Chair is none. PS Resolution 213 is approved, subject to style.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that, with the permission of the body, that we consider proposed Senate Resolution number 211. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration is in order.
May we ask the Secretary to read the title?
Secretary will read title measure, insert into the records the text of said resolution.
Resolution expressing the sense of the Senate in recognizing the strong and robust amity and cooperation between the Republic of the Philippines and the Republic of Singapore, and commemorating the 50th anniversary of our diplomatic relations.
Joe
Thank you, Mr.
Delida.
President, may we recognize the distinguished, we'd like to put on record, Mr. President, that Senator Nancy Binay also filed a measure which is a PSR, Philippine Senate Resolution number 214. Taking in
214.
consideration PS Resolution number 214 as well, Mr. President.
All right.
May we now recognize the sponsor, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. Sponsor.
Senator Sherwin Gatchalian is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Then yours.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, in the 7 decades since the founding of the Republic of the Philippines, conversations about our country's foreign relations have often revolved around our ties with major military and geopolitical powers. Even now, during the present administration, a lion's share of media attention has been devoted to the emerging shifts in our relationships with the two giants on the world stage today, the United States and China. In pursuing a more independent foreign policy, however, it is my view that the Philippines must give more attention to cultivating stronger ties with smaller but also formidable allies. In the context of a deepening integration within the members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, special attention must be given to developing more fruitful social, economic, defense, and cultural partnerships with our ASEAN neighbors. In line with this, Mr. President, it is my honor to sponsor a resolution to recognize the strong and robust amity and cooperation between the Philippines and the undisputed economic powerhouse of ASEAN, the Republic of Singapore, in commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between our proud nations. Mr. President, 5 decades of friendship and cooperation with Singapore has made a significant impact on economic development and social progress within the Philippine archipelago. Singapore is our country's 5th largest export market worldwide and our seventh largest economic partner with two-way trade volume of 10.49 billion US dollars. In 2018, 21.18 billion pesos worth of investment commitments came from Singapore alone, comprising 11.8% of total foreign pledges and making Singapore our second highest source of investments overall. I should say, however, that the true potential of our deepening relationship with Singapore lies beyond figures on trade sheets. As the 69th Lee Kuan Yew Exchange Fellow, I was given the humbling opportunity to learn more about Singapore and its people during the study tour visit graciously arranged by the Singapore government last month. In my meetings with various government officials and civil society leaders, especially in the fields of education and energy, I had the opportunity to learn from Singapore's enviable and world-class systems. I also came to realize how similar we are to each other. Due to our unique colonial experiences, the Philippines and Singapore are both complex melting pots of Western influences and Asian sensibilities, a rarity among Southeast Asian states. This common cultural and historical foundation provides Filipinos and Singaporeans with a strong capacity for mutual understanding among one another. It is no surprise then that more than 200,000 Filipinos live, work, and study in Singapore, thus mutually contributing to progress and development within our respective societies and economies. The agreement signed between our countries during the state visit of Singaporean President Hamila Jacob this September has signaled the development of even stronger ties with our Singaporean brothers and sisters. The partnership in the fields of innovation, education, cultural cooperation, data protection, waterworks and sewage systems, human capital and infrastructure development established by our governments are poised to bring this mutually beneficial relationship between our countries to even greater heights. With all of this, Mr. President, I respectfully call on this august chamber to adopt this resolution to express our sincere appreciation and gratitude to the government of the Republic of Singapore and the Singaporean people for the important contributions they have made to economic progress and development in the Philippines and throughout the entire ASEAN region. The Senate of the Philippines and the Filipino people look forward to many more years of unwavering friendship and cooperation between our proud Southeast Asian republics. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, to co-sponsor the measure is also Senator Binay, but she had asked that her co-sponsorship speech be inserted into the records.
So inserted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, no member wishes to interpolate. We move to close the period of interpolation.
Hearing no objection, period of interpolation is closed.
Mr. President, there being no member who wishes to propose any amendments, we move to close, as well as committee amendments, we move to close the period of amendments.
Hearing no objection, period of amendments is closed.
With that, Mr. President, I move to approve and adopt Senate Resolution number 211, taking into consideration the Senate resolution as well of Senator Binay. And
214.
before we take that, before you approve it, Mr. President, may we make all members of the Senate, with the permission of the sponsors, be made co-sponsors and co-authors.
The other members of the Senate present are made co-sponsors of the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any objection to the approval, adoption of the said resolution? Hearing none, PS Resolution 211, taking into consideration 214, is hereby adopted.
Before we take up the next resolution, Mr. President, I'd like to just acknowledge the gallery. We have with us the congressman of the 5th District of Cebu, the mayors rather of the 5th District of Cebu, Mayor Erwin Yu, Mayor Alf Arquilano, Mayor Manuel Santiago, and Mayor Edgar Rama. All of them are from Camotes Island, the beautiful Camotes Island.
Yes. Our fellow public servants are welcome to the Senate.
And of course,
Yes.
he's with the former brother-in-law of Senator Sherwin, Sidney Carcel.
Former.
Kapatid yan, girlfriend that. Sherwin. Sorry, narinig ba yun? Narinig na. Strike that off the record. Mr. President, with the permission of the body, we move to consider proposed Senate Resolution number 212. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of measures in order.
May we ask the Secretary to read the title.
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
Resolution expressing the profound sympathy and sincere condolences of the Senate of the Philippines on the death of John Gokongwei Jr.
Mr. President, to sponsor the measure, we want to sponsor. May we recognize the distinguished author and our distinguished Minority Floor Leader, Senator Franklin Drilon.
Senator Frank Drilon, Minority Leader, is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, today we stand to sponsor proposed Senate Resolution 212. This resolution expresses the profound sympathy and our sincere condolences on the death of John Gokongwei Jr., a pillar of the Philippine economy. Mr. President, Mr. John Gokongwei, during his lifetime, was larger than life to many of us. He lived a life worthy of emulation by every Filipino. Indeed, if every Filipino adhered to the principles that he nurtured and he pursued, our country would not be saddled by the problems that we face today. He had very simple rules in his life. First, he said, love your work. And indeed, simple as it is, it says a lot of his life, of why he has succeeded. He passed away at the age of 93 on November 9, 2019, when as founder and chairman emeritus of JG Summits Holdings. He was born 93 years ago, as we said, but he was a scion of a wealthy Filipino Chinese based in Cebu. But at an early age, he was orphaned and helped his mother provide for the needs of his siblings by selling roasted peanuts, soap, candles, and threads on a bicycle in Cebu. But such poverty did not prevent him from succeeding to become a pillar of the Philippine economy and to start with, established in 1957, a cornstarch plant, Universal Rubina Corporation, which eventually became one of the country's largest food and beverage companies. His hard work, perseverance, and vision led to the establishment of other major companies in the country, such as Robinson Land Corporation, Robinson Retail Holdings, and Cebu Air Inc., which generated generated thousands of jobs for our jobless Filipinos and gave them an opportunity to succeed in life. In 1992, Mr. John Gokongwei Jr. and his brothers donated a significant portions of their shares in JG Summit to establish the Gokongwei Brothers Foundation to support education in our country. Mr. President, indeed, Mr. Gokongwei lived a life whose hard work, business acumen, and philosophy helped open doors of opportunities to his fellow Filipinos. Given all of these things that he has done for our country and our people, Mr. President, I submit that it is only fitting that this chamber express its profound sympathy and sincere condolences to the family of the late Mr. John Gokongwei, his wife, Elizabeth, and their children for having lost a father, a husband, and to the entire country, the country lost a outstanding citizen whose life we will always remember. With that, Mr. President, subject to style, may we move that proposed Senate Resolution 212, expressing this chamber's profound sympathy and sincere condolences on the death of John Gokongwei Jr. be approved. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, with the permission of our colleagues, I just also want to give a few words. I'm quite close to his son and daughters, particularly Lance and Liza, and also in a way with Robina. But I idolize the father because of his entrepreneurial spirit. As a matter of fact, on a sideline, I'm also an entrepreneur. And I remember one of his speaking engagements, which I attended. He actually told people that his suggestion to first-time businessmen is to create a brand. You go create your own branding. And with that, I endeavored to come up with my own Z-Ice, now ice, industrial ice company, and also Z-Gas, which is a wide station of gas stations in Bukidnon, with the utilization of Z as my branding. And I did that because of what I had learned from Mr. John Gokongwei, Mr. President. He was really a visionary. He was really a game changer. He came up with another airline. One time, we only had one airline. And therefore, if the prices were this much, sorry ka na lang. Wala kang magawa. Either that or you ride the boat. I remember there was a time that people used to ride the boat to Iloilo, to Negros, to Cebu, and Cagayan de Oro. But because of the advent of the budget airlines, the Cebu Pacific, people now had an option. Instead of taking an overnighter in the boat, they would pay almost equal amount of money, which actually, in a way, kind of like was also a detriment to the shipping industry. Medyo nawala po yung naging transport shipping na lang, yung passenger shipping, nawala na. Because of Mr. Gokongwei's concept of yung budget airlines. Then for a while, before the duopoly ended up buying the telephone company, he had Sun Cellular, which provided also cheap cellular connectivity to our people. So, saludo po ako sa kanya. And not to mention, I think, well, not to mention the fact that I'm sure it was mentioned earlier by Senator Drilon, that he donated half his wealth to his foundation to build schools. 20 billion, I think 20 billion pesos, one of the largest donations in the Philippines, to build schools. And that's why there are schools in La Salle, I think there's schools in Ateneo, and other schools, centers of excellence. Philippine Women's, it's named after him, large complexes named after him, and especially the business campuses, or business colleges. So I salute him. And you know, the children are good people. Lance is not mayabang, napakabait nila lahat. It goes to show that he was a good parent to his children, Mr. President. Very low-key family, but yet very influential in the world of business. So I join the good Senate Minority Floor Leader with this measure, Mr. President. With the permission of Senator Drilon, may we ask all members? Right now present are Senator Drilon, Senator Ralph Recto, Senator Grace Poe, Senator Bato del Rosa, Senator Bongo, Senator Tolentino, Senator Marcos, Senator Pia Cayetano, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, and Senator Bong Revilla are here. They wish to become co-sponsors, but also the senators who are not here, Mr. President, may we also place them on the record as co-sponsors and co-authors with the permission of the good gentleman. Thank you, Mr. President. With that, Mr. President, we move. No member wishes to interpolate the measure. Move to close the period of interpolation. Yes. So move to close the period of interpolation, Mr. President.
All right, any objection? Well, actually, the previous question was the motion
yes,
of the
for
minority
all,
leader
to make
to
everyone
adopt.
know.
No, to adopt. That was the motion of the minority leader to adopt the
Oh,
resolution.
Mr. President, yes.
So,
Before that,
what is
Mr.
the
President-
pressure of the minority leader?
May the majority leader may lose his post one of these days because in the authors of the resolution, he missed to mention the Senate President.
Oh, no,
So I move that the Senate President be one of the co-authors.
automatic na po siya because I was referring to the Senate President. So yes, the Senate President is present.
We have just been given the spectacle of the sharpness of the minority leader because I thought I was the only one who,
No,
who
Mr.
heard
President.
that.
No, Mr. President, because I was addressing you, and therefore, you
Yes.
being the head of the chamber, obviously, you're going to be made principal or co-sponsor, Mr. President.
Yes, of course. The old guys in the chamber are just pulling your leg.
Thank you, Mr. President. There
Yeah,
being no
so,
interpellations and amendments, Mr. President, move to close the period of interpellations.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is approved.
Mr. President, move to adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 212, subject to style, with all members.
Any objection? Chair hears none. PS Resolution 212 is hereby adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Anyone want to interpolate sin taxes? Huh? Mga sponsorships. Huh? With that, Mr. President, well, I know on the record we have 4 interpellations, but we asked the indulgence of our colleagues for interpellation that there are just several of our colleagues who wish to sponsor measures. These are quick sponsorships. There will be no interpellations on the measure. And it will be quick, Mr. President, as long as their speeches are short. Mr. President? I know. I'm just teasing. Mr. President, I move that we transfer, with the permission of the body, I move that we transfer from the cadre of ordinary business to special orders, Senate Bill number 1092. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. So transferred.
Mr. President, I move that we consider Senate Bill number 1092 and ask the Secretary to read the title of the measure.
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
Senate Bill number 1092, an act institutionalizing the grant of teaching supplies allowance for public school teachers and appropriating funds therefore.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, may we recognize the distinguished gentleman from Cavite, no other than Senator Ramon Bong Buduts Revilla Jr.
Senator Ramon
Buduts.
Bong Revilla Jr. is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. The great Albert Einstein once said, "It is the supreme art of the teacher to awaken joy in the creative expression and knowledge. Teaching is a mission, and teachers are evangelists." From the dawn of civilization to our time, society has always called upon education to provide the key to human progress. And the teacher has been a major pillar of that progress. No progress is possible that is not grounded on knowledge. Knowledge on wisdom, like all the human virtues, increase and multiply the more they are shared with others. Mr. President, I stand here today for the benefit of our Filipino teachers. I would like to enjoin our colleagues to support Senate Bill number 1092 under Committee Report number 14, submitted jointly by the Committees on Civil Service, Government Organization, and Professional Regulation, Basic Education, Arts and Culture, Ways and Means, and Finance. This is an act institutionalizing the grant of a teaching supplies allowance for public school teachers and appropriating funds therefore, which is a substitute bill for the measures filed by our colleagues. Senate Bill number 42, introduced by Senator Ralph Recto. Senate Bill number 75, introduced by this representation. And Senate Bill number 957, introduced by Senator Sani Angara. Mr. President, sabi nga ng ating mga guro, Mabuti pa ang mga sundalo binibigyan ng bala para sa kanilang baril. Pero ang mga guro hindi binibigyan ng chalk para sa kanilang blackboard. Sa totoo lang po, Mr. President, binibigyan natin sila ng allowance para pambili ng chalk at iba pang materyales na kailangan nila sa pagtuturo. Ngunit, kulang na kulang ang halagang ibinibigay po natin sa kanila. Under the budget of the Department of Education in the Annual General Appropriation Act, there is the provision of cash allowance for teachers that is given to classroom teachers every school year, which shall be used for the purchase of chalks, erasers, forms, portfolio preparation, and other classroom supplies and materials. Such classrooms, supplies, and materials serve as the teachers' communication tools for their students. Sa pamamagitan ng mga ito, napapadali at napapalawig ng ating mga guro ang mga aralin at gawain ng ating mga mag-aaral. Since the amount of 500 pesos per classroom teacher per school year has been specified in the 2008 GAA, the chalk allowance or teaching supplies allowance has steadily increased roughly every 3 years. It is now at 3,500 pesos per classroom teacher per year. Ang halagang ito kung kada araw ay lalabas na 16 pesos po lamang. Hindi po ito sapat para matugunan at matustusan ang pangangailangan ng mga guro sa kagamitan para sa pagtuturo. And with the advent of K-12, digital technology and a student-focused, student-centered environment with the teacher being a facilitator of learning, this meager amount is dismally insufficient, Mr. President. The 21st century education push by the Department of Education requires teachers to access information superhighway through technology so as to comply with the changing of the times amidst global economy. Unfortunately, these are not readily provided by the government, and teachers are confronted by the sad reality of purchasing and shouldering the cost of these tools like laptops, projectors, and printers through loans deducted from their meager monthly salaries. Mr. President, teachers must receive full moral, physical, and financial support due to their noble vocation. Noong mga nakaraang taon, meron na pong mga panukalang upang madagdagan ang chalk allowance ng ating mga guro. In fact, during the 17th Congress, pumasa sa third reading sa Senado ang panukala, ngunit hindi pa rin po naisabatas ito. To renew this chamber's endeavor, the committee reports out Senate Bill number 1092, which proposes to institutionalize the teaching supplies allowance and to peg it at a higher amount of 5,000 pesos. Furthermore, to ensure that the said allowance will be responsive to the needs of our teachers, it is also mandates that the Secretary of Education to conduct periodic review and recommend necessary increase based on current prices of the materials. This measure will benefit more than 800,000 teachers, Mr. President, who guide our children, build a foundation to make them responsible persons, and prepare them to become the future leaders of our country. The Senate has been supportive to the increases in the teaching supplies allowance in the previous years, and I am confident that they will extend the same support to this measure that seeks to institutionalize the same. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Ralph Rector is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it has been said that what the teacher writes on the board of life can never be erased. But we, on the other hand, can erase and change the amount of the annual chalk allowance our public school teacher gets, which is what this bill precisely sets out to do. erasing 3,500 and replacing it with 5,000. In this age of PowerPoint, when USBs now form part of the public school teacher's toolkit, chalk allowance remains as the popular term for the teacher's supply allowance they get at the start of the school year. The money is for consumable teaching supplies like pens, paper, cartulinas, paste, erasers, and in this digital age, for USBs, and even tingi-tingi internet load. If teaching is performance art, the chalk allowance allows our teachers to buy the required stage props. At present, the chalk allowance is 3,500 per year, which translates to about 16 pesos a day. Per student, it comes up to a daily collection or allocation of 50 centavos each. 50 centimos bawat mag-aaral kada araw. If you spend it for bond paper, 16 pesos will likely get you the same number of A4s at the corner sari-sari store. If spent for internet load, 16 pesos can buy you data which won't even allow you to download half an episode of Ang Provinciano. This brings me to another reason why we should increase the teaching supply allowance. Teachers now need more buck for bytes because they have mountains and gigabytes of reports they have to submit. Mas marami pang homework ang nagtuturo kaysa sa tinuturuan. Computers ought to be tools of liberation technology. They have instead become instruments of digital enslavement. The bottom line is that the chalk allowance is not enough. This forces our teachers to spend their own money buying more supplies. This is the reason why for 4 Congresses now, I've been campaigning to raise the chalk allowance. Fortunately, we have managed to, pun intended, chalk up small victories along the way. In 2014, when the main administration proposed 1,000, I lobbied to have it increased to 1,500. And with the support of then Finance Chair Chis Escudero, it was approved by the Senate and included in the 2015 national budget. The 1,500 soon became the 3,500 of today. But because it is still not enough, I've since campaigned for a higher amount, 10,000, which is what my Senate Bill number 426. So when the committee report proposed 5,000, I signed it because a half box of chalk is better than an empty one. My years in Congress have taught me the value of compromise, that it would be better to go home with half a loaf of bread than none at all, that 50% of one is better than 100% of zero. But let me still argue for my 10,000 proposal, because it is feasible and far from being fiscally irresponsible. Magkano po ba ang kabuang budget para sa chalk allowance sa ngayon? Base sa kasalukuyang 3,500 kada guro, 2.9 billion pesos. The simple arithmetic is that if we increase it to 5,000, it will only entail an additional 1.25 billion pesos. If we raise it to 10,000, we will be needing another 5.4 billion. Chalk dust lang po ito in this era of the mega-trillion annual government expenditures. Compare the 5.4 billion to this year's 17.2 billion travel budget for the national government personnel. Ang isang bagay na dapat din nating tandaan ay hindi napupunta sa bulsa ng mga teacher ang chalk allowance. Sa totoo lang, abonado pa nga sila. So there is no way that this allowance, no matter the amount, will enrich them. It, however, enriches the way they teach. The end beneficiaries are the audience of their daily performance, which are our children. So if they are the ones who shall benefit, then teaching supplies allowance is not an expenditure, but an investment that yields the highest social and economic ROI. In closing, let me remind you that the chalk allowance is to teachers as what bullets are to soldiers. And those waging the war against illiteracy need more of this type of ammunition. If we are not asking our soldiers to buy their own bullets, then why should we be forcing our teachers to buy their own provisions in fighting illiteracy? Thus, I urge you, my dear colleagues, to approve this bill, hopefully with the amended amount of 10,000. This is not a case of us being generous, but us giving the teachers what is rightfully theirs. Maraming salamat, Mr. President.
Majority Leader. Senator Gatchalian is recognized.
Mr. President, honorable colleagues in the Senate, good afternoon. We always acknowledge the important role that teachers play in shaping the character of our nation. For the past years, Mr. President, the Department of Education has been receiving the biggest slice of the annual budget pie. Despite this strong budgetary support, however, we recognize that resources allotted to teachers are still inadequate. We have proposed different measures that will help ease, if not alleviate, the burden of 840,000 public school teachers looking after 22.1 million students. This includes salary hikes and added benefits that will help our school teachers lead a better life, which is the vision of Republic Act number 4670, or the Magna Carta for public school teachers. In realizing this vision, we tend to forget that teaching supplies are not often tallied like other items on education spending. While this may seem insignificant compared to the other issues surrounding our education system, this is no less material to our public school teachers. Every year, public school teachers receive 3,500 pesos annually for their teaching supplies. For entry-level teachers making 20,754 pesos a month, this budget equates to around 16.9% of their monthly salary. If we divide this annual budget to 10 months of school, teachers would get 350 pesos a month, and that is probably just enough for a rim of bond paper. This budget, known as the chalk allowance, amounted to 700 pesos in 2011. But despite this significant increase, the present chalk allowance is only equivalent to about 16 pesos per school day. With that amount, you can probably get one low-cost pen, a pencil, and a few sheets of paper a day. This leaves teachers with no choice but to shell out money to support classroom activities and facilitate classroom discussions. In the passage of the 2019 budget, there was already a proposal to increase the chalk allowance, but this was not granted. It is also worth noting that the chalk allowance is provided for annually under the General Appropriations Act. This means that the budget can either increase or decrease subject to the proposal of Congress and the approval of the President, making our teachers' financial conditions more vulnerable. Naglalabas na nga po sila ng pera mula sa sarili nilang bulsa. Wala pang kasiguraduhan na magpapatuloy ang suportang natatanggap nila para magkaroon ng sapat na gamit at makapagturo ng maayos. It is high time that we give our teachers a greater sense of security when it comes to funding their teaching supplies. Mr. President, as co-author and co-sponsor, I strongly support the proposal that would institutionalize the increase of our teachers' chalk allowance to 5,000 pesos. This amount will be periodically reviewed by the Department of Education for necessary increases in the following years. In both chambers of Congress, there are several bills that aim to institutionalize this increase in teaching supplies allowance, 4 in the Senate and 8 in the House. This is an indication that there is broad support for this proposal. It is only fair that we give our teachers every bit of support for the service they do to our country. We are always inspired by our teachers, who do everything they can to ensure that our students' learning experiences are never compromised despite the limitations. At this point, Mr. President, I also can't help but think of the teachers in Mindanao's quake-jolted areas who are doing their best to restore normalcy to more than 4 million affected students. In the aftermath of disasters like this, one can't help but admire and express gratitude for the teachers who are going the extra mile, sacrificing their own finances so that students' education are never disrupted. They do all this while helping their own families recover from the effects of the disaster. This is the kind of sacrifice that our teachers are making while we can shower them With all the respect and gratefulness, they also deserve to be supported in a way that eases their financial woes. This measure was already approved on third and final reading in the 17th Congress. I urge my colleague to work with us to ensure the quick passage of this measure. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Senator Grace Poe also has a co-sponsorship speech of the measure, but she says that we just insert it to the records. I can give the speech now to our colleagues. I so move, Mr. President. That
All
we
right,
insert it.
so inserted into the records.
Mr. President, also, just to manifest, there's a letter from Senator Joel Villanueva, which is has conformity of the sponsor. Senator Joel would like to be made co-author of the measure, and with the permission also of Senator Bong Revilla, if I can also be made the co-author of the measure, Mr. President. So myself and Senator Joel Villanueva.
All right, we place it on record. Senator Revilla agrees.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President.
An honor, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that to allow our colleagues to study the measure further, I move that we suspend consideration of the same.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration measure suspended.
Mr. President, I move to with the permission of... Mr. President, I move to transfer from the calendar of ordinary business to special orders, Senate Bill number 1157 under Committee Report number 21. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none, so transferred.
Mr. President, I move to consider Senate Bill number 1157 as the Secretary to read the title of the measure.
Secretary will read title of the measure.
Senate Bill number 1157, an act creating the Office of the Mobility Czar to coordinate urgent related measures necessary and proper to effectively address the transport and traffic crisis and for other purposes.
Mr. President, may we recognize the sponsor, Senator Grace Poe.
Senator Grace Poe is recognized.
Mr. President, first I'd like to thank our colleagues, Senator Bato de la Rosa and Senator Amy Marcos for their indulgence. Allow me to give my sponsorship speech. Mr. President, dear colleagues, I shall be brief and direct to the point, for that is how travel within and between cities in our country should be today. This bill picked the good solutions from the noise of the debates. It harvests from the heavy traffic of great ideas, from those who view the problem from afar to those who experience it daily, including the incisive ones presented by Senators Tolentino, Recto, and Revilla, found in their resolutions and bills. I would like to thank them for their inputs and the expertise they presented during our hearings. It is likewise enriched by the inputs from government agencies, the academe, and experts, whether those who have made a career in studying transport problems or those who grapple with them in real life. I will no longer repeat the numbers churned out by organizations that quantify the national losses from traffic. Our traffic is so bad that it has birthed an industry, from JICA to ADB to Waze, that measures our national misery. For all their studies, none shocks as this reality that captures the horrors of commuting in Metro Manila. That many of us have to wake up at 4 in the morning to be in the office by 8 and leave work by 5 only to stagger into home by 9 p.m. Let me walk you through the salient points of this bill. Number 1, transport and traffic management plans shall be anchored on the principle of moving persons rather than just vehicles. We have to change the automobile-centric metrics of success. Thus, high occupancy vehicles should be prioritized, as well as innovative ways of making people, such as pedestrian-friendly walkways and bike lanes. Number 2, it creates an office of the mobility czar, an office directly under the office of the president. The person will have a seat on the most important table in the country. If you want to put traffic in the front burner, then its cabinet advocate must not be a backbencher. Number 3, it mandates the drafting of the mobility action plan for every LGU because roadmaps are indispensable. On a national level, this bill compels the urgent crafting of the Transportation Master Plan, one with a longer shelf life so that it transcends administrations. Kung tayo nga gumagamit ng Waze para sa ating biyahe, kailangan rin nating ng mapapara sa biyahe ng ating bayan. 4. It establishes a single transport and traffic management unit in each city. Someone must be directly responsible for addressing the local transport concerns. 5. It harmonizes local traffic laws with national laws. We cannot balkanize our traffic management, where traffic rules of one city end in its boundary and another takes over. Seamless management can only be done by a singular unit. Number 6, it promotes and expands the use of alternative methods of procurement under already existing laws. To address the crisis, it presents a novel solution which proposes shorter completion for a premium. 7, this bill expedites acquisition of rights of way and other projects, but in a manner that is targeted, not speculative, pinpointed in location, and not real estate plays that impose predatory prices. 8, this bill supports the need for a modernized public transport with social mechanisms that will not leave our PUV sector wanting. For assistance shall be given by the state in order to create a safer, more comfortable, and environmentally sustainable good public transport system. 9, this bill seeks the route rationalization of PUVs in consultation with the LGUs affected as the basis for the modification or revocation of franchises issued by the LTFRB. And I thank in particular Senator Tolentino for sharing with us the work that he's already done previously and the experiences that he's had so that a bus consortium and at least the rationalization of routes will be implemented. Finally, this bill addresses the technical deficit in our traffic management know-how. By capacitating our agencies to handle present and upcoming challenges, we are future-proofing this important sector. Mr. President, while there are many things that this bill is about, there are equally many things that it is not. It is not the sole handbook to fix our traffic problems. It is but one of many. For example, laying more railway tracks and running more trains on them is a guaranteed traffic buster. Land use plan is another. There are also solutions on the demand side which are outside the ambit of this bill, the foremost of which is decongesting Metro Manila by dispersing development across the regions and with jobs available there foreclose the need for people to migrate to the national capital. For as long as development remains limited to the metro, our people will continue to flee a countryside lacking in opportunities only to crowd into a problematic megapolis. The requirements of not just moving them around, but of housing them, educating them, will spiral upward in the years to come. That's a bigger crisis, which we must all solve soon. Thank you very much.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. To allow our colleagues to study the measure further, we move to suspend consideration.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration measure suspended.
Yes, we beg the indulgence of Senator Bato. He'll be taken up right away. It's just that the order of business, usually the bicameral, ratification of bicameral reports, Mr. President, are at utmost importance. If it's okay with Senator Bato, this will only take 2 minutes. Mr. President, we receipt of a bicameral conference committee report. To be ratified, the bicameral committee report on disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 1043 and House Bill number 4933. This is the postponement of the 2020 barangay and SK elections. Permission of the body, may we recognize Chairman Senate panel of the Senate panel, Senator Amy Marcos, to give us the highlights of the bicameral report. May we recognize Senator Amy Marcos.
Yes, thank you very much,
Amy
Mr.
Marcos
President.
recognized.
Thank you. The Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of Senate Bill 1043 and House Bill 4933, having duly met and discussed the differences, hereby report through a joint explanation of the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions, and I request that the Majority Leader and Mr. President insert this into the records. Thank you.
With that, Mr. President, we thank the Senator Amy Marcos for the report. I move that we approve and ratify the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 1043 and House Bill number 4933. Let the text of the joint explanation, Mr. President, be inserted in the records of the chamber.
So inserted. Any objection to the motion of adoption? Hearing none, the said Bicameral Conference Committee report is hereby approved.
With that, Mr. President, permission of the body, I move that we transfer to the calendar of ordinary business to special orders, Senate Bill number 1155. I so move.
Any
Under Committee Report
objection?
number 19.
Hearing none, motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move to consider Senate Bill number 1155 and ask Secretary to read the title of the measure.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration is in order. Secretary will read the title of the measure.
Senate Bill number 1155, an act fixing the validity period of the license to own and possess, permit to carry outside of residence or place of business, and registration of firearms, amending for the purpose Section 7 and 19 of Republic Act number 10591, otherwise known as the Comprehensive Firearms and Ammunition Regulation Act.
Mr. President, to sponsor the measure, we would like to recognize the distinguished gentleman from Davao del Sur, no other than Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa.
Senator Ronald De La Rosa is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my dear colleagues, I stand before this august body to sponsor Committee Report number 19, containing Senate Bill number 1155, an act fixing validity period of the license to own and possess, permit to carry outside of residence or place of business, and registration of firearms, amending for the purpose Sections 7 and 19 of Republic Act number 10591, otherwise known as the Comprehensive Firearms and Ammunition Regulation Act. What do the United States, Mexico, and Guatemala have in common? In these countries, Mr. President, owning a gun is a constitutional right. However, the same could not be said about the Philippines. Nevertheless, our government does allow its citizens to own and possess firearms. However, Mr. President, in a country like ours, gun ownership is a privilege that is hidden behind numerous documentary requirements and countless conditions that must be met. Then and only then can one avail of such privilege. The facts will serve to tell us what we need to know. According to data provided by Firearms and Explosives Office of the Philippine National Police, before the enactment of Republic Act number 10591, otherwise known as the Comprehensive Firearms and Ammunition Regulation Act of 2013, there were a total of 1,650,353 registered firearms. Fast forward to the enactment of RA number 10591, and the number increased to 1,869,684. An achievement, Mr. President, but not quite. The same data set would show that as of August 31, 2019, a whopping 45% of this 1,869,684 previously registered firearms were not renewed. 45% means 837,758 firearms. As for the counted loose firearms, there are 7,073 of them only for 2019. And this is exactly why we say that a mere increase in the number of registered firearms upon the implementation of RA 10591 does not count as an achievement, especially when a sizable number of the owners choose not to renew their licenses despite the possible risk of imprisonment, as mandated by Article 5 of RA number 10591. One may ask why, Mr. President, but one need not look very far for an answer. License renewal means a mountain of documents, papers, conditions. When we finally see how badly we would like to avoid that, we understand. We come to see that the very heart of the matter is practicality. Such is the spirit of Senate Bill number 1155. First, Mr. President, to set the validity period of our firearms registration from 4 to 5 years is a practicable and obvious solution. It would serve us well if renewing our license to possess firearms comes at the same time that we renew the firearms themselves. In effect, we are not just extending the validity of our firearm licenses. We are more fundamentally extending our capacity to be responsible, our capacity to defend ourselves and those whom we love. Second, the practicality of setting the validity of our license to possess firearms in a way that is reckoned from our birth dates and at 5 years, Mr. President, is staring at us right in the face, given that we renew our driver's license and generally our professional regulation commission license on our birth month or date. Then renewing our firearms license around a similar schedule would be an easy breeze to remember and accomplish. Third, the practicality of extending the validity period of one's permit to carry firearms from 1 to 2 years is one that makes perfect sense, given that the ones who are granted such a permit are those whose lives are under actual threat or imminent danger. It would be helpful if this privilege and protective measure is to be bolstered by a longer time allowance. We are for the promotion of safety, Mr. President. We are for the protection of our people. But surely, and that is what this bill ensures, it would be better if it would not take a mountain of us to do so. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Senator Ralph Rector is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, my dear colleagues. I would like to begin with a confession. I am a gun owner like, of course, the sponsor of this measure, Senator Bato. This is so because the rectors are a family of shooting athletes who fought under the flag and brought home medals. My father was many times a Philippine champion and was an Olympian. 2 of my brothers also made it to the national team, with Ricky even winning gold in the Southeast Asian Games. The family lore is that Ricky is a trap shooter, my dad was a sharp shooter, and Don Claro was the straight shooter. But in terms of accuracy, precision, and speed, none of them can beat me in shooting from the hip. So in keeping with the recto tradition, I keep a collection of guns, some of which are family heirlooms, the most lethal of which I keep under lock and key from the clear and present danger who is my wife. But I believe that my being a shooting sportsman does not compel me to abstain from sponsoring this bill, but on the contrary, advocate for it. What this bill addresses are the challenges which I, like the rest of the responsible gun owners, from the small hardware owner in a street favored by armed riding in tandems, to the wife of an OFW who lives with her small children in an ungated village, unpatrolled by the police, to the traveling countryside salesman, to the rancher in a remote homestead, have personally experienced in securing gun licenses. But before any of you here in firearm-ready fashion would shoot from the hip and nick up this bill because of the mistaken notion that this bill makes it easy for anyone to acquire guns. Let me state it up front that this bill does not make it easy for anyone to own a gun. On the contrary, it retains all the hurdles in buying one. It does not shortcut the process nor shorten the list of requirements. The present battery of tests remains. The current police, medical, judicial clearances stay. Not one of the seminars will be scrapped. None of the documentary requirements, including tax returns from certain type of applicants, will be discarded. In other words, it does not lower the bar for gun ownership, or to use a shooting lingo, enlarge the target that even a blind man can hit. This bill preserves existing gun controls, which I fully subscribe to, even if as a gun holder saying it makes me sound like a chicken rooting for Mang Inasal. So what does this bill seek to do, Mr. President? It seeks to streamline and harmonize gun permit and licensing schedules because the current system is so disjointed that tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of gun owners, fatigued by the ordeal of securing permits, have opted not to renew theirs. At present, for every gun a person owns, he has to secure up to 3 permits from the Philippine National Police. First is the firearm registration, which must be renewed every 4 years. The second is a license to own and possess firearms, which must be renewed every 2 years. And the third is, if one has applied for and qualified for it, is the permit to carry firearms outside of residence or place of business, which must be renewed annually. In almost all cases, these permits expire and thus must be renewed on different dates. So if one had 2 guns, he has to go through 14 separate applications in 4 years. In order to simplify matters, this bill proposes to bundle all these applications under one filing date, the birthday of the applicant or the licensee, the same rule that applies for a driver's license. Ibig sabihin, imbes na iba't ibang araw, gawing sa kaarawan na lang ng may-ari ng barel ang takdang araw sa pagkuha ng lisensya sa pagmamay-ari nito. And instead of different expiry dates, 4 years for registration, 1 year for the permit to carry, 2 years for the license to own, this bill seeks to grant the registration and license to own a uniform validity of 5 years, while the permit to carry a validity of 2 years. Synchronizing the application period will not, however, leave the government shortchanged. By and large, current fees will be retained. So there will be no loss of income on the part of government. Extending the validity of the permits does not also deny the government the chance to flag errant permit to carry holders every year. Because gun ownership remains a privilege and not a right, the license can be revoked for cause anytime. The permit to own or carry a gun is not an irrevocable franchise. What is true, Mr. President, is that having different licensing schedules, more than the clearances required, have forced many owners to opt out of renewing their gun licenses. By PNP's count, close to 500,000 registered gun owners were without valid licenses to own firearms by the second quarter of 2015. And one of the culprits cited was the different application schedules. This only proves, my dear colleagues, the observation that when regulations are hard to comply, we force people to disobey them. Indeed, whether they are for guns or for taxes, simplifying rules is the best way to ensure compliance. Mr. President, although the evening news and the morning papers paint a country hemorrhaging from gun violence, facts show that these are not caused by licensed civilian-owned firearms. The truth is there are more unlicensed firearms than licensed ones today. There are 1.2 million registered firearms, of which close to 540,000 are in civilian hands. But this figure is eclipsed by the number of illicit firearms, which is estimated to be 2.4 million. While by group, registered civilian gun owners account for the most number of guns, they are responsible for the least number of deaths, in fact, too minuscule to count. Licensed civilian gun owners did not forcibly occupy Marawi. nor are they behind the still booming kidnap for ransom business in the South. They do not commit EJKs, nor do they moonlight as grab riders, meaning armed riding in tandems who grab bags. Licensed civilian gun owners do not compose the world's oldest rural insurgent army, nor do they make up the ranks of separatists fighting for self-rule, who now want to end it in exchange for block grants. Rather, they are law-abiding citizens who own guns either for sport or self-protection. They who do not endanger other people's lives, but whose own lives are in danger. And we cannot blame them if out of desperation some of them are keeping a gun in their homes as the last line of defense during these perilous times when police are hard to summon, or when they finally come, they crawl in glacial pace. It is in their behalf that this bill is being sponsored. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the good sponsor of this measure, Senator Bato.
Mr. President, may I manifest that I wish to be
Revilla.
co-author of Senate Bill number 1155 with the concurrence of Senator Bato?
Mr. President, for the record. Mr. President, may I also be allowed to give my sponsorship speech, as I am also one of the principal sponsors. Mr. President, I'm honored to co-sponsor Senate Bill number 1155 under Committee Report number 19, which the Committee of Public Order and Dangerous Drugs has submitted. Our current law sets the renewal period for the licenses or license to possess at 2 years and renewal for registration of firearms at 4 years. With this bill, taking the license and registration renewal period up to 5 years and streamlining the bureaucratic processes, gun owners are far more likely to register as is required of them, and the state will be able to keep better control over gun violence in the country. We have done similar validity extensions for driver's license and Philippine passports. We have extended the validity of the driver's license from 3 to 5 years and passport from 5 to 10 years. By extending the validity of these documents, the public and government also saved on man-hours in applying for and processing these documents, respectively. Thus, it will be more economical for Filipinos applying for licenses to possess and registration of firearms, and for the government in processing these documents if we extend the validity of such as what we experienced in driver's licenses and passports. You know, Mr. President, when I posted the bill in my Facebook page, usually when you post your report and what you had passed, it gets several likes, several shares. This particular post on extension of LTAP and gun licenses was my best so far. It probably had about thousands of likes and thousands of shares. I think everybody shares in our frustration as gun owners, and I believe the same goes with Senator Bato when he sponsored this. I'm sure with Senator Ralph Recto as well. People were elated with the idea that they do not have to come yearly to to CRAME to file a renewal for their gun permits and licenses. So it will streamline the whole process, Mr. President. And just for the record, I had asked, how many people, during the hearing, how many people with licensed firearms commit crimes? It was less than 1%, an insignificant number, I believe 0.001%, or talagang napaka-konti, Mr. President, from the totality of the number of firearms in the country. And so it goes to show that those who commit crimes are really unregistered, unlicensed firearms and unscrupulous individuals who break the law. So both people who register their firearms and the license to own and possess obviously are law-abiding citizens. So it is okay, Mr. President. It was the consensus of the committee and the resource persons that it is definitely okay to register or to renew the licenses every 5 years. And Senator Bato, our chairman, was also correct in stating in the committee report as well as during the hearings that the difference between us and the United States is that's why there's so many firearms, or rather, so many gun-related violence. People shooting like tens and 20 people at a time in schools and all that, because it is very easy to buy a gun legally. All you have to do is submit some states it's just the license, some states it's actually just the SSS ID. As long as it's a
Social
government
Security.
social security ID, and they can already purchase a shotgun, hunting rifle. I remember when many years ago, but it's no longer, well, some still do. In Target, in Walmart, in the Midwest, they have racks of guns there, shotguns, 22 rifles. These are real firearms and not toys that are being sold. All you need is a license, a driver's license, and you can buy. Unlike us in the Philippines, Mr. President, it is very stringent. You see, you go through the drug test, you go to the psychological test, yung neuro examination, and so on and so forth. So, napakahirap yung registration process. So with that, Mr. President, I believe gun control is the answer to gun violence, and with this light, I ask our colleagues to see the passage of this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Tolentino is recognized.
Mr. President, with the concurrence of the principal sponsor, Senator De La Rosa, this representation is signifying his intention to be a co-sponsor likewise.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Vice Chair,
We put on the
record.
record. And Mr. President, it's timely because this Thursday, there are several gun shows. One sponsored by Arms Corps and the other one sponsored by AFAD on Thursday. And we're invited, I'm invited to both together with Senator De La Rosa. Unfortunately, for the record, I'd like to state so that the sponsors of that shows will hear me out. I cannot attend, but because of the budget, we will not be able to move departments. Maybe I can ask the good chairman to represent us during the, yes, on Thursday, budget hearing. So we will just ask Senator Bato to represent us, Mr. President. With that, Mr. President, I hope that we pass this right away. Hopefully, by December, we can pass this, Mr. President. It's a happy measure. I think it's a happy measure. With that, we move to suspend consideration of the same.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure suspended.
And the good chairperson can already mention during his, of course, his speech on Thursday that we're already tackling this on plenary. So, okay, and hopefully be approved right after the budget deliberation. Mr. President, I move to transfer from the calendar of ordinary business to calendar of special orders, Senate Resolution number 38 under Committee Report number 10. So moved.
Any objection? Hearing none, so transferred.
Mr. President, I move to consider Senate Resolution number 38 and ask the Secretary to read the title of the measure.
Hearing no objection, consideration of the measure is in order. Secretary will read title of the measure.
Ikaw na. After him, ikaw na.
Resolution directing the Senate Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs and National Security and Defense to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on missing minors who are allegedly recruited by leftist groups as their members and fighters to the detriment of the welfare of said minors, with the end in view of recommending measures that will ensure peace and promote the welfare of the children.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move to recognize the sponsor, no other than the distinguished gentleman from Davao del Sur, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa.
Senator Ronald De La Rosa is recognized. Sponsor the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I stand before this august body to sponsor Committee Report number 10, containing Senate Resolution number 38, entitled Resolution Directing the Senate Committees on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs and National Security and Defense to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on missing minors who are allegedly recruited by leftist groups as their members and fighters to the detriment of the welfare of said minors, with the end in view of recommending measures that will ensure peace and promote the welfare of children. Ginoong Pangulo, napakahalaga ng committee report na ito sapagkat ang paksa na nakapaloob sa report ay tungkol sa hinaing ng mga magulang hinggil sa nawawala nila mga anak at ang pangkalahatang kapakanan ng mga kabataang Pilipino. Last 23rd of July 2019, a group of parents came to my office to share their sentiments and agony over their missing daughters, most of whom are minors. According to the painful recounts of the mothers, their daughters were enrolled in their respective schools as senior high school students. Everything was in order, or at least so to the unsuspecting mothers thought. However, what appeared as interesting school activities for their children turned out to be recruitment schemes employed by student leaders who in reality were enlisting young, active, naive, vulnerable young students as members of left-leaning organizations, taking advantage of the susceptibility and curiosity of the youth. The recruiters induced these minors to leave and abandon their schools and homes, and to devote their time to support the advocacies of their organizations whose philosophies tend towards the revolutionary movement. The journey that your committee traversed was emotionally laden. The mothers agonizingly recalled how they saw the drastic changes in their daughters' behavior. From being timid, industrious, and respectful, their daughters gradually exhibited aggressive and resentful manners and became easily agitated upon hearing social issues. Suddenly, their daughters' whereabouts became a source of daily stress. Communications became less frequent. Fabricated alibis from so-called leadership trainings, fora, and seminars just to be away from home for a number of days. Then days became weeks, and weeks became months, until some of these minors were nowhere to be found. That is what precisely brings us here, in the very walls of this session hall, where I now stand before you, imploring you to think, see, and feel, not only as senators of the country, but also, and more importantly, as parents and guardians to our children. Ginoong Pangulo, hindi natin lubos maisip ang pighati ng mga magulang nawawalan ng mga anak. Walang gamot ang makapagpagaling sa sakit na naramdaman ng isang magulang kung mawalay ang anak niya, lalo't walang kasiguraduhan sa kanyang kaligtasan. In their desperation to look for their daughters, these mothers searched through its nook and cranny of every street just to find traces of their presence. But everyone knows that no matter where the search may lead, a mother's heart is always drawn back to her beloved brood. We could hardly imagine the shock and dismay of these mothers when they saw and discovered their young daughters now undernourished and grimy in the middle of the streets, participating in rallies, holding banners and placards, and provocatively chanting tirades against the government. These mothers could barely recognize their own daughters. Suddenly, they realized that their daughters had transformed into different persons and no longer the same innocent children whom they nurtured and cared for all these years. But what could have triggered this sudden twist of fate? Ginoong Pangulo, ayon sa mga salaysay ng mga magulang na mga nawawalang bata at ayon na din sa mga larawan ng nakita nila sa Facebook accounts ng kanilang mga anak. Ang mga anak nila ay hinikayat ng mga miyembro at opisyalis ng Kabataan Party List, Anak Bayan, League of Filipino Students at Gabriela Youth na sumanib sa kanilang organisasyon at suportahan ang makakaliwang adhikain tungo sa armadong pakikibaka laban sa pamahalaan. Mr. President, your committee unraveled through its investigations the deceptive pattern employed by Kabataan Party List, Anak Bayan, and the other left-leaning groups in making rebels out of our young students. The representatives of these groups prey upon the youth sector, particularly young students who are most vulnerable to fall into the pit of their deception. Yung mga estudyante na hindi nakakaangat sa estado ng buhay, yung mga may galit sa mga magulang, yung mga may pinagdadaanang mga pagsubok sa pamilya, ito ang mga target ng mga makakaliwang grupo na hikayatin na maging miyembro ng kanilang samahan. Marahil dahil sa madaling mahikayat at maniwala ang mga estudyante na may pinagdadaanan sa buhay, kung kaya't sila ang pinupunterya ng mga makakaliwang grupo na maging kasapi nila. In the guise of lectures, fora, or seminars, representatives of these left-leaning groups would discuss to young students some academic issues like tuition fee increases, student representation on policy-making bodies, and the like. Then the discussions escalate to more serious social, political, and economic problems such as massive unemployment, suppression and violation of individual rights, steady price hike of commodities, among others. This is the stage where these representatives indoctrinate the students in the belief that the government is not responsive to the needs of the people and that poverty is embedded into the system. They inculcate into the young minds of our students that the only way to eliminate social ills is to defy the duly constituted authorities and raise arms. Dito na magsisimula ang baluktot na pag-iisip at pananaw ng mga kabataan hinggil sa pamunuan ng ating pamahalaan. Dito na sila maghahanap ng paraan upang lumahok sa pakikibaka ng mga makakaliwang grupo. Ito ang simula ng pagsanib ng mga estudyante sa mga rally at protesta laban sa pamahalaan. Dito lalo pinaiigting ng mga makakaliwang grupo ang interes ng kabataan na sumanib sa kanilang samahan upang lalong maintindihan ang sakit sa lipunan. Aabot sa puntong hihikayatin ang ating mga kabataan na sumama sa kabundukan kung saan makikisalamuha sila sa mga maralita at danasin ang buhay ng pakikibaka. Mr. President, this is where our young students are immersed into the life and struggles in and of the countryside. This is the stage where they personally deal with the farmers, peasants, and their respective families and experience the struggles of daily living. Their recruiters take advantage of this space where they indoctrinate the minds of our students in the perceived inability of the government to alleviate the plight of the poverty-stricken communities. Unbeknownst to these young students, they are now actually dealing face-to-face with the members of the new People's Army who are all too happy to have new recruits in their midst. Ginoong Pangulo, sa puntong ito, namumulat na ang mga mata at isip ng ating mga kabataan na napasama sa kabundukan sa realidad ng kanilang kinakaharap. Dito nila mararanasan ang hirap at pasakit sa buhay na kanilang pinili. Sa mga kabataang nakabalik sa buhay estudyante, sila ay nagiging leader ng organisasyon sa kanilang paaralan at inaatasang manghikayat pa ng mas marami pang estudyante na sumanib sa kanilang grupo at tanggapin ang mga adhikaing makakaliwa. Ngunit meron ding mga tuluyan ng isinabuhay ang ideolohiya ng pag-aaklas at pagtutol sa pulisiya ng gobyerno. Sila ang naging hardcore members ng komunistang grupo na isinasapuso ang revolusyonaryong pag-iisip. News reports tell us that according to the Department of Interior and Local Government, some 500 to 1,000 young people are being recruited by communist rebels every year. The number is not just a cause for alarm, Mr. President. The number is practically a wake-up call, rousing us from the sleep of complacent policies and overly trusting parenthood. On the brighter side, not all student activists who embrace the life of the countryside have reached the point of no return. Luckily, For some young students, they have realized that living life of armed struggles is not the solution to the social ills, and that the revolutionary life is nothing but an empty promise of a better life. It is unfortunate, however, that the normal life they wish to return to is often no longer there. Karamihan sa ating mga kabataan na sumanib sa makakaliwang grupo ay na-brainwash na ng mga miyembro ng NPA na hindi na sila maaring bumaba ng kabundukan at bumalik sa kanilang mga pamilya. Ito ay sa kadahilan ng sila'y natukoy na ng mga militar kung kaya't sila ay maari nang arestuhin, ikulong, pahirapan at patayin. Sa takot na mapahamak pa, ang iba ay nagtitiis na lamang sa buhay NPA at pinili na lang mabuhay ng patuloy na nakikibaka at sa kasawiang palad. Ang iba ay napapatay sa inkwentro sa militar. Mr. President, the scenario presented in this committee report is not new. It is unfortunate that the recruitment of young students by the communist groups has been a vicious cycle for many years now. But why do they go after the young generation? Why victimize the juvenile minds whose spring of ideas is unsullied and incorruptible? Why exploit the future of the youth by instilling revolutionary philosophies of defiance, armed struggle, and radicalism? The answers we have for these questions, Mr. President, may not be final, but they are plausible and they are reliable. Your committee surmises that the central reason to why the youth are being targeted lies in their vulnerability to indoctrination, especially in accepting the ideological system that they thought was the perfect answer to society's struggles. Ginoong Pangulo, hindi langad sa kaalaman ng mga tao ang presensya at impluensya ng leader ng Communist Party of the Philippines na si Jose Maria Sison. Ayon sa mga pag-ulat, siya na dati na ring aktivista ang nagbibigay ng direktiba sa mga kaalyadong organisasyon. Dapat mas lalong paigtingin ang paghihikayat sa ating mga kabataan na sumanib sa mga aktibidad ng kanilang grupo. Sa ganitong paraan, lalong dadami ang kanilang mga kasapi, lalong lalawak ang paglaganap ng kanilang filosofiya at lalong lalakas ang armadong pakikibaka sa ating bansa. At nagagawa nila ito sa pamamagitan ng mga nagpapakilalang leader ng aktivistang organisasyon ng mga kabataan at estudyante. Ganito ang nangyayari sa ating mga estudyante at anak, at ang kanilang kwento ay nakapaloob sa committee report na inihain ko sa Senado. Ang kwento ng mga minor de edad na estudyanteng nahikayat na sumanib sa Kabataan Party List, sa Grupong Anak Bayan at sa League of Filipino Students na hindi na bumalik sa kanilang mga magulang at ngayon ay patuloy na hinahanap ng kanilang pamilya. Lest we be misunderstood, allow me, Mr. President, to emphasize that being an activist does not necessarily equate to being a communist. School activism is by all means a positive step towards the enlightenment of young minds to the various social maladies and the corresponding action of the government and its citizenry in responding to the needs and welfare of the people. Hence, the democratic right to express one's opposition to the government and its leaders is more than accepted. It is gravely important. The right to express one's beliefs in how to manage the affairs of the state should never be curtailed nor suppressed. However, the corresponding actions done pursuant to one's ideology should never be at the expense of the rights and welfare of others, especially our young people, whose innocence should not be exploited by the leftist groups. The directive to focus on the youth as the buffer zone for revolutionary movement should be condemned. It is definitely not worth the sacrifice. Many of our young people have already lost their lives by being at the front line of the armed revolution. These were the same youth who had promising futures, who led brilliant academic lives, and who cared for their families, until they were recruited by the wrong people who led them towards the road to perdition. Mr. President, there are several administrative and legislative recommendations in the committee report submitted for consideration by this August chamber. First, we must increase and intensify internal security enforcement in schools, taking into account CHED Memorandum Order 09, Series of 2013, entitled Enhanced Policies and Guidelines on Student Affairs and Services, specifically Section 28, Safety and Security Services, and DepEd Order 44, Series of 2005, or the Declaration of Schools as Zone of Peace. Second, we must increase police visibility in school premises with a reasonable number of police forces at an acceptable designated time. We value the right of expression and academic freedom. However, the exercise of these rights should not be at the expense of the rights and interests of the youth who may end up as armed combatants by insurgent groups. Third, there must be stringent regulations on the issuance of student identification cards in schools. Schools must adopt an efficient, reliable, and secured identification system. Fourth, there must be a strict implementation of DepEd Order Number 66, Series of 2017, or the implementing guidelines on the conduct of off-campus activities, and CHED Memorandum Order 63, Series of 2017, or the policies and guidelines of local off-campus activities. School authorities should observe due diligence in the conduct of off-campus activities. Otherwise, administrative sanctions will be imposed. Fifth, CHED and DepEd should look into the possible liabilities of school administration and teachers of the universities and colleges where the minors are enrolled. Furthermore, CHED should likewise look into the reported continuing recruitment of students in higher education institutions to determine liabilities of the school administration and teachers. Six, the AFP and PNP shall conduct seminars or lectures to students and parents on arouse, organize, mobilize, and career orientation in the law enforcement sector in order to encourage students to pursue studying law enforcement-related courses. 7. DepEd and CHED must exercise regulatory and supervisory powers in reviewing schools' curricula, syllabus, and daily lesson log to ensure that values of patriotism, cultural enrichment, and historical preservation are taught in schools. An exception is granted to those private higher education institutions that are autonomous or have deregulated status pursuant to CHED Memorandum Order 52, Series of 2006. 8. An administrative order must be issued by the CHED and DepEd mandating school administrators to initiate thorough administrative investigations against teachers who instigate the students to join rallies and demonstrations, advocating radical or subversive ideologies. And as a result of said investigations, administrative sanctions should be meted out against the teachers if the facts and evidence warrant. 9. There must be an adoption of the psychological debriefing and de-radicalization programs by the DSWD, PNP, and AFP for the recruited and indoctrinated minors and students. 10. Further investigation of the recruiters of the minors should be done for possible filing of criminal charges. 11. An interagency task force shall be created for the search and rescue of missing students who are believed to be recruited by leftist groups. The task force shall be composed of DepEd, CHED, AAP, PNP, DSWD, CHR, other government agencies, and private institutions. The task force shall closely coordinate with the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, or NTF-LCAC. Legislative recommendations. Mr. President, as part of the legislative recommendations, your committee endorses the following amendment to RA 11188, or the Special Protection of Children in Situations of Armed Conflict, to expand coverage of recruitment of children in armed conflict to include students recruited by insurgent groups in schools. Likewise, amendment to RA 9208, or the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act of 2003, must be introduced in order to include the qualified trafficking in persons, the recruitment of children as armed combatants. Furthermore, RA 7610, or Special Protection of Children Against Abuse, Exploitation, and Discrimination Act, should be amended in order to include in the definition of child trafficking the recruitment, indoctrination, and immersion of children in the communist insurgent movements and activities. Also, it is important to amend RA 9372, or the Human Security Act, by including within the ambit of the definition of terrorism any criminal act committed pursuant to a subversive dogma in order to coerce the government to give in to an unlawful demand. Equally necessary is the amendment to RA 7941, or the Party List System Act, by mandating the outright refusal or cancellation of registration of any national, regional, or sectoral party, organization, or coalition that advocates subversive dogma and pursuant thereof undertakes criminal acts towards this goal. In addition to the aforementioned amendments, we must institutionalize the preventive measures that would protect the youth from being recruited as members of revolutionary organizations. Moreover, DepEd Memorandum Order 66, Series of 2017, that regulates co-curricular and extracurricular off-campus activities, providing penalties in case of violation thereof, must be institutionalized. And lastly, it is essential to support the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, created under Executive Order 70, by providing the necessary funds for the implementation of its programs. These proposals hopefully will address the urgent issues at hand and will add another layer of protection for the Filipino youth. We are also encouraged, Mr. President, by the fact that after the hearings conducted by the committee, there were a series of successful operations done by the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police, retrieving several minors who had already been recruited by the leftist groups. The minors were found in the midst of ammunition and explosives, and not to mention a strong atmosphere of resistance and rebellion. If there is to be a noble end to these operations and this retrieval, Mr. President, it is that they underscore the need to protect our youth, or better yet, the need to become better parents and guardians to our youth. As chairman of your Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs, I humbly submit this report to you, my dear colleagues, as I beg you to join me in this crusade in saving our youth from the snares of the duplicitous and deceptive leftist groups who use our youth for violent ends. Think of your own children, nephews and nieces, or even the ordinary children you see on the streets, who are all potential victims of recruitment by these revolutionary organizations and their leaders. Yes, we share our children to the world for them to explore what lies beyond the corners of our homes and schools, but we always provide protective shields for them so that they will not be taken advantage of and have their own freedom snatched away from them. The lives of our youth are worth our sacrifices. Let us lead them to the right path. Let us teach them how to choose their battles wisely, to fight the kind of battles that build up humanity rather than those that destroy and eat away at the fabric of our communities. Let our fight be the guide today and in the years to come. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Very well said from our chairman of the Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs. We'd also like to, before we suspend, we'd like to recognize his guests in the gallery, Mrs. L.V. Kaalaman, Mrs. Luisa Espina, Mrs. Gemma Labsan, and Mrs. Annabel Sabado. I think these were the parents that General Bato, or Senator Bato rather, had mentioned in his speech. With that, Mr. President, to allow our colleagues to study the measure further, I move that we suspend consideration of the same.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is suspended.
And one final sponsorship, Mr. President, I move that we transfer the gallery of ordinary business to special orders. Senate Bill number 1156 under Committee Report number 20.
Hearing no objection, so transferred.
Mr. President, move to consider Senate Bill number 1156 and ask the Secretary to read the title of the measure.
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
Senate Bill number 1156, an act promoting foreign investments, amending thereby Republic Act number 7042, otherwise known as the Foreign Investments Act of 1991, as amended and for other purposes.
Yes, Mr. President, Majority Leader.
Senator Amy Marcos is recognized.
In the long study of economics, investment is defined as the purchase of goods and services not to be consumed today, but instead bought today in the belief that wealth will be created tomorrow. Investment, thus, are monies paid committing to the idea that such monetary assets will provide income, will provide productivity or a higher price for profit, employment, and other gains in the future, in the years to come. Such economic optimism has not been upheld by the recent record of foreign investments in our country. While the burgeoning Asian economies, especially within the ASEAN region, go from strength to strength, Asia today accounting for over 34% of FDIs and ASEAN for 20%, the Philippines languishes as one of foreign capitals, least attractive and smallest destinations. Singapore today receives over half of ASEAN's investment. Indonesia, following a high-profile anti-corruption campaign, saw a five-fold increase in foreign investments from 2016 to 2017, posting a record $23 billion within a single year. Vietnam, pursuing its aggressive export policy, was the country of choice for almost all of the 33 companies that departed China overnight following the U.S. trade dispute. But 28 years after the passage of RA 7042, or the Foreign Investment Act of 1991, foreign capital has only very slowly trickled into the Philippines. And unlike our Asian neighbors, we have not been swept up by the great tide of foreign capital that has created huge global enterprises in the ASEAN, empowered agriculture, even in the remotest villages, and lifted millions from poverty and ignorance. Worse, as small as the Philippine share has been in the global foreign direct investment portfolio, according to the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, FDI inflow has declined 85% from last year to this year. So further, interregional and cross-border or ASEAN investment has also been negligible here, when in fact ASEAN community investment has been huge and critical in Indonesia and elsewhere. The question arises, What's wrong with the Philippines, and why is everyone afraid to invest in us? There is also the challenge of attracting responsible, chosen, select investors, quality investments, as it were, that direct capital, talented management, institutional effort into sustainable and developmental enterprise. What little foreign investment has come to the Philippines has merely been in gas and natural resources, traditional manufacturing, real estate, construction, wholesale and retail trade. In truth, very few new businesses have entered the country, with foreign investment pledges approved by different Philippine promotion agencies declining in the past 18 months. Despite a vaunted domestic market of 106 million people in the Philippines, much like Indonesia indeed, and an underutilized youth dividend comparable to the rest of ASEAN, investments directly needed in infrastructure, new manufacturing, agriculture, health, tourism, and technology, and the booming creative industries have not been forthcoming. Are we Filipinos really only good for pogo and online gaming? At best, good only for call centers and basic customer services. In the effort to derive foreign investment share for our country, I sponsor today SBN 1156, the committee report number 20, to promote foreign investment, amending thereby RA 7042, otherwise known as the Foreign Investment Act of 1991, as amended, and for other purposes. While the Foreign Investment Act seeks to attract productive investments from foreigners, several of its provisions instead create a substantial barrier to foreign investment. The OECD has repeatedly declared that due to the Philippine Constitution's restrictions and our lamented negative list, we continue to be one of the most restrictive countries in the world. The World Bank also decries the minimum $200,000 US capital requirement that we impose as substantially bigger than the amounts required by the other emerging economies such as China, India, and in fact, most of ASEAN. Our committee report thus aims to reduce this requirement to a minimum capital investment of $100,000 US, with just 15 or 1/5, not 50 direct local employees, except in the case of retail and other sectors governed by specific laws. The Department of Trade and Industry, as well as the different local chambers, support this amendment, stating that that with the threshold of $100,000 US as minimum investment, the competition it would pose would only be against a small percent, constituting 11%, constituting a small sector of SMEs, and would instead, rather than compete and destroy SMEs, encourage competition and innovation in the tourism, technology, and creative sectors. Our other amendments echo those from Senator Gatchalian's report from the 17th Congress, requiring an annual rather than a biennial or 2-year review of the negative list by the NEDA to cope with the rapid changes in regional and the international marketplace. Also, we invoke the establishment of an investment database, together with one-stop shops in bricks and mortar throughout the country, a big expansion of the 17th Congress web portal. Our committee report also repeats a previous national security consideration mandating the monitoring and evaluation of all foreign operations with regard to impacts on local and national security. However, there are new investment promotions councils, for example, that we have determined to add in the new amendments in order to integrate the divergent and sometimes conflicting efforts of the BOI, or the Board of Investments under the DTI, PEZA, the Clark, Subic, CESA, and other ecozones, the Department of Energy in its effort to boost self-reliance in energy, as well as the PNOC, and other national agencies with their own pet projects, not to speak of individual LGUs and local governments with separate concerns and interests, all perhaps driven by the good intention of promoting foreign investment, but frequently confusing or even discouraging to foreigners uninitiated into the Filipino mess of doing business. We further see the need to rationalize their different investments into a coherent, comprehensive, and strategic investment priorities plan. Unlike its precisely targeted and finely tuned Singaporean, Thai, Indian, and other equivalents, the Philippine Investment Priorities Plan of 2017 is a mere 7-page laundry list without mention of measurable or time-bound results, whether in the medium or the long term. To date, in fact, the Investment Priority Plan of 2018, as well as the National Export Plan, remain incomplete and unsigned by the executive. Last year, President Duterte issued EO 65, the 11th negative list for foreign investors. While foreign chambers and even NEDA Secretary Pernia lamented that only marginal improvements are contained in the list, the executive issuance for the first time includes the liberalization of the foreign ownership for internet businesses, now established at 100% foreign-owned. Our committee report similarly creates a new digital category, finally and clearly distinguishing between internet business or enterprises transacting sales of goods and services through online digital platforms versus the internet as mass media under the Consumer Act, or RA 7934, the Tobacco Regulation Act of RA 9211, as well as myriad Security and Exchange Commission's opinions. Much research and legal study is yet needed to regulate technology and manage the universal tech lash against the abuse and exploitation engendered by the internet, even as digital commerce, content producers and providers, as well as DOJ's internet access providers are required that we clear the clouds of confusion and point the way forward for Philippine digital development. There is also in our committee report an entirely new area of foreign investment amendments to do with punishing public officials, employees, as well as foreigners committing malfeasance, misfeasance, nonfeasance in the pursuit of foreign investment. Corruption has been a long-standing and pervasive deterrent to investing in the Philippines, and through harsher and much expanded enforcement of the anti-graft law, the Code of Ethical Conduct, and other administrative sanctions, we seek to improve transparency, reliability, and accountability in the entire process of registration, permitting, and investment. It should be noted that other jurisdictions have been emphatic and frequently draconian in this regard. The BKPM of Indonesia clapping in jail highly placed officials together with their family members, and Brazil recently establishing a direct investment ombudsman solely to go after foreign investment grafters. It will be noted that this committee report, following the wisdom of the 17th Congress, makes no mention of the foreigners' practice of professions. In truth, it is a provision absent in the original law, but somehow inserted later on in the negative list. Our endeavor is for the FIA to address only issues directly related to investing in the Philippines, not the practice of professions by foreigners in the Philippines, which should tidily and more logically be left within the ambit of each of the specific laws governing each of the different professions. In order to consolidate these rules in an orderly fashion, I filed today Senate Bill 1164, a separate effort covering the foreigner's practice of professions, an attempt to both encourage foreign professionals to share their expertise, their skill, and their experience with their Filipino counterparts, and at the same time, through the Professional Regulation Commission, protect Filipino professionals from from exploitation and certain unethical practices of gigantic multinational operations. The amendments of the Foreign Investment Act intoned by our committee report are merely a first step in the long journey to overcome the issues confronting the Philippines as an unpreferred, undesirable investment destination. The inconsistency and unreliability of policy, a lack of quick redress and judicial settlement, the failure of coordination between schools, training, and the labor market, the lack of integration among government agencies, LGUs, and once again repeated, the difficult and opaque Philippine bureaucracy, the reluctance to establish bilateral and free trade agreements, and the mixed results of build, 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 and the meager transport and communication network support, the sense that high-level corruption and influence peddling is necessary for investments to be approved. No doubt there remain huge roadblocks for us in the future. Here in Congress and the Senate, the Foreign Investment Act is merely a starter bill for a whole slew of essential changes in the Public Service Law with Senator Grace Poe, the Retail Trade Act under Senator Coco Pimentel and authored by Senator Drilon, government procurement, the contractors licensing, and many other liberalizing amendments that will finally and truly open up the Filipino economy to foreign investment. But let us begin by amending the Foreign Investment Act today, finally lending truth to the economist's prophecy of great and future gains. Let us encourage foreigners who are believing in us and share their capital and talent with our citizenry. With them, we must together invest in our future, the future of our country, the Philippines, the future of every Filipino. For if indeed, as economists say, optimistically, the promise is that investment is a committed belief in wealth and prosperity to be created in the future, such is reason enough for us here in the Senate to grapple with foreign capital laws in the present, in the conviction that progressive and prosperous Philippines beckons to all of us in the future. Let us make way for the future today and thus make the Filipino dream tomorrow's reality. Thank you. Yeah, now.
Senator Chairman Gatchalian.
Mr. President, honorable peers in the Senate, good evening. Republic Act number 7042, otherwise known as Foreign Investment Act, was enacted in 1991 to invigorate the Philippine economy by substantially liberalizing foreign investment laws and policies. Foreign direct investments, or FDIs, are important to a developing country like ours, as they provide tangible economic benefits in the form of technical expertise, technological transfer, foreign exchange from exports, employment, and higher tax revenue, among others. At the time the Foreign Investment Act was passed in 1991, the law did a fair job in accomplishing its mandate to increasing foreign investor access into the country. According to the Joint Foreign Chambers, in a 2010 policy document, FDI accumulation in the Philippines grew from $4.7 billion between 1990 and 1994 to $11.1 billion between 2005 and 2009, representing 237% increase over a 20-year period. Despite this progress, we have the second lowest FDI accumulation figures among the ASEAN 6 from 2015 to 2017, according to the World Bank. Our FDI accumulation for that period stood at $23.98 billion. Meanwhile, Singapore's FDI accumulation for the same period at $210.48 billion. Indonesia had $45.79 billion. Vietnam had $35.5 billion, and Malaysia had $32.84 billion. Only Thailand recorded a lower FDI accumulation at $19.78 billion. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD's, FDI Regulatory Restrictiveness Index for 2018 also lists the Philippines as one of the most restrictive countries in the world when it comes to FDI rules. Of the 68 economies covered by the index, the Philippines rank among the most restrictive in terms of FDI rules in business services, telecommunications, media, electricity, and transport industries, with a restrictiveness score way above the OECD average. We fared a little better in the financial services industry, although we still scored above the OECD average. All in all, the OECD found that the Philippines have the most restrictive FDI rules among the 68 economies, including in the study, with an overall restrictiveness score almost 6 times higher than the OECD average. It has been 28 years since the enactment of the Foreign Investments Act, yet our current foreign investment laws and policies are still relatively restrictive, standing in the way of economic attractiveness and employment opportunities. We remain a relatively unattractive investment destination because our investment laws are less open and generally more inhibitory compared to those of our neighbors in the ASEAN. Given the current global and regional economic climate, there is a need to take a look at the Foreign Investment Act in its current form and face the fact that it may not be living up to its potential as a vital piece of legislation. I am co-sponsoring today a measure that proposes to amend several provisions of the Foreign Investment Act, which will help us take advantage of global and regional economic dynamics. If passed into law, this bill will help the Philippines more attractive as an investment destination, which in turn could open up more employment opportunities for the Filipino people. The updated policy declaration puts a premium on the major role played by technological advancement, as well as global and regional economic realities on the Philippine economy. The proposals also provides for a review mechanism over foreign investment transactions that threaten to impair national security, ensuring that the state does not take for granted national security issues in the name of gaining more FDIs. I also see that the committee report carries certain provisions which reflect the intent of my proposal under Senate Bill number 919 on the establishment of a web portal that will serve as a central database and make it easier for investors to learn about the country's pertinent laws, rules and regulations, and policies, including restrictions on foreign investments. This will provide potential foreign investors access to what legal and practical issues they might need to face, sending a clear message that transparency and ease of doing business are as important to the state as it is to businesses and investors. Taken together, these amendments will result in a foreign investment regime that is more fine-tuned to the changing economic climate and its accompanying demands. Our receptiveness to these changes may very well determine whether we can live up to our true economic potential or remain in the doldrums compared to our next-door neighbors. While I reserve my prerogative to interpolate on some of the provisions of the committee report, I support this measure's immediate passage. It is high time for our country to start enjoying the economic benefits that our neighbors have reaped from foreign investments for the longest time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. To allow our colleagues to study the measure further, move to suspend consideration of the same.
Hearing no objection, consideration measure suspended.
Okay, Mr. President, we have no other matters in the business of the day except for interpellations. Unfortunately, for the record, all those who would like to interpolate particular bills are already gone. Tomorrow, and most of them are preparing for the deliberations of the budget tomorrow, Mr. President. Just I'd like to make a quick announcement with the permission of the body and the permission of the Senate President, is that tomorrow we will be, we'll be suspending our sessions today, and we will start at 10 a.m. tomorrow with the list of the budgets that will be discussed, starting with the general principles. Technically, there will be no longer a need for a roll call for our colleagues, although we encourage them to attend and participate with the budget deliberations. However, we can no longer have committee hearings for the information of the staff that are listening today. We can no longer have committee hearings on different measures during the suspension of, during the ongoing sessions on the budget. Yes, Mr. President, because
Yes,
technically
yes.
we will be having plenary sessions, Mr. President.
As agreed in the caucus, we will be suspending the session today
Yes, Mr.
and
President.
resume tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. Just as a reminder to our colleagues, the presiding officer will bang the gavel at exactly 10. So I hope that the other...
We will sleep, I'll sleep early tonight, Mr.
Yes, the
President.
Committee on Finance people and those from the
Remind the
Executive
staff,
Department
yes.
must be here by that time. And then the plan is, of course, to have a break at 12 noon and
Yes.
resume at, what do you want, 2:30 or 3 o'clock?
Maybe, no, that's a bit too late, sir. Maybe 12 noon to about, maybe to 1:30? Para
That might-
makatapos tayo ng 2 weeks, Mr. President. Kasi
That
baka,
might be too close.
we could play
Perhaps
it by
2
ear
o'clock.
siguro tomorrow, perhaps 2 o'clock.
12 to 2 o'clock, yes.
Yes, Mr. President. And another thing I wanted to make mention, Mr. President, a reminder to the agencies. May we ask the staff, the Committee on Finance, to remind the agencies that if their budget is up on deck, if the head of agency is not there, they will be bypassed. I hope they are forewarned, and I think they probably know this already by now, Mr. President.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
So, with that, Mr. President, of course, I was asked by some staff if they can tackle some bills. The bills, Mr. President, is dependent on the body and the minority floor leader. But traditionally, we do not tackle any bills unless it's an emergency, like a priority measure that needs to be tackled. And we could suspend the budget and tackle the bill. But traditionally, we don't tackle any more bills
Yes.
unless it's an emergency measure. With that, Mr. President, I move that we suspend session until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, Tuesday, November 12, 2019. I so move.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, the session is suspended until 10 o'clock in the morning of Tuesday, November 12, 2019.